Shall we get started? Justin, can you call roll call, please?
Commissioner Kerr.
Present.
Commissioner Hiley. Chair Hiley.
Present.
Commissioner Thiessen.
Present.
Commissioner Zuba.
Present.
And Commissioners Ugalde and McCroskey are absent.
All right, thank you. Welcome to the May Transportation Commission meeting. The City of Albany recognizes that we occupy the land originally protected by the Confederated Villages of Lejeune. We acknowledge the genocide that took place on these lands and must make strides to repay the moral debt that is owed to this indigenous people, specifically the Ohlone tribe. We thank them for their contributions, which have transformed our community and will continue to bring forth growth and unity. The City of Albany commits to sustaining ongoing relationships with the tribe and together build a better future for all that now make this their home. All right. So now is an opportunity for the public to speak on anything that will not be on today's agenda. Do we have any in the audience?
Good evening, Commission and staff. I'm Peggy McQuaid. I'm the current mayor of Albany, and I've been intending to come to your meeting probably since January, and this is the first time our schedules have actually meshed. I did want to take a minute of your time this evening to personally say thank you to each one of you for your service to our community. It's not always easy or convenient to do the work that's necessary to prepare and to show up for these meetings that could last for 3 hours or more. The Transportation Commission is in a unique position to serve our community members. You have the responsibility to help all of us, children, adults, and seniors, get around town safely and efficiently using a variety of transportation modes. In a city constrained by physical space, your creativity and professional knowledge enable you to complete the puzzle of safe movement for all areas of the city. You've spent countless hours over the past few years working with our consultants on the active transportation plan. Through numerous public meetings, study sessions, and expos, you've listened, questioned, considered opinions, and finally tonight we'll be reviewing the final version to be sent to council. I wish you all success as you continue to work to improve the quality of life in our community. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor McQuaid. Any other comment in the audience?
Okay. Hold on, let me pull up my notes. My name is Hillary Sardinas, and I live at 974 Peralta Avenue. First, I wanted to say thank you so much for working on the drainage on Marin Avenue. However, I do encourage you all to go check out the corner of Peralta and Marin, specifically the light posts, and I did email in a public comment about this, but where they're placed is actually right in the way of where traffic flows. It makes it really awkward, it narrows the walkway, it makes the corners really sharp. It definitely messes with the flow. I'm not sure if it's still ADA compliant, but I do think it would make sense to go there and see if there's a way to move where those, where the future traffic lights will be, maybe into the planters where the temporary ones already are. I think it would just make it a lot more open and less cramped. You might not have a kid on a bike slamming into it, because I think they won't be able to see these posts potentially. So I think it's a little bit of a hazard. And since we're still in the process of construction, please take a look at that. Also, the curb cuts are not quite wide enough. The other day I was walking my dog across the street, and there was a dad and a kid on his scoot bike standing there on the yellow pad, and actually to walk into the planter to get around them, they weren't going because the light was not switching, and it used to be the whole curb, was open, but now it's not because of the planters, which are great. I get that they're good for drainage. They're going to be really aesthetically beautiful. But if they were just a little bit wider to accommodate people walking, that would be really helpful. Finally, at least one of the planters looks like it has some plants in it, and they don't look like they're native plants. I would encourage you all to consider including natives instead of non-natives. For one, they're adapted to the local environment. That means that they're going to be more drought tolerant, less irrigation. They're also better for the wildlife, including a lot of pollinators, which can benefit people's gardens. Some recommendations would be like some annuals or perennials like yarrow and phacelia, but just encouraging you all to do that so that we have something that matches more the Albany environment. All right, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jamie Tibbetts. I also live 974 Peralta. Hillary is my wife. And in addition to what she's mentioned about everything at the corners, going back to the summer of 2024, our block had lobbied for a traffic calming study on Peralta, specifically our block between Marin and Sonoma. And I would love an update on what that study found. At the time, we were witnessing a lot of speeding. It's a curve, it's a blind curve. There's a hill. There's a lot going on there. My family, as well as others on the block, are cyclists, and there have been now 3 times where I've been biking home and have been passed on the blind curve by an impatient motorist who doesn't know that we have the right of way to share the lane and they shouldn't cross a double line. They've forgotten that you're not supposed to pass anybody on a hill or a blind curve. There's a lot of education that needs to happen. The signs from years ago that said, speed is 15 miles an hour on a blind curve, I think were taken down because they weren't effective. So at the time, I'd suggested, some sort of semi-permanent barrier, like a visual marker to remind people not to cross over. My fear was that somebody would cross around us, see oncoming traffic, swerve back, wipe us out, avoid their car getting hit. So yeah, I remember National Night Out, we talked about, hey, there's a study, this is great. This was two summers ago, and so I'd love to check up on that. And yeah, that would be great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And we're taking public comment on anything that's not on the agenda. Are you ready for that? Wonderful. Yes, please.
Well, I don't know what's been said so far. I was checking on the agenda this evening to double check a couple of things that I downloaded for Friday. And I found that the agenda this evening is entirely different from what I saw Friday. There were some attachments on a point of interest to me that are completely different from what I was able to download on Friday. And I just wanted to register my objection to whatever that reason is, what it is, and what's going on. There's a document, a 64-page document in tonight's agenda that was posted yesterday. I downloaded a document on Friday that was, 13 pages or something like that. I analyzed it thoroughly, made comments. I wrote a letter. I don't know if you've received that. I sent it in this morning. But at this point, I'm really upset that whatever is being discussed tonight is not what was represented apparently on Friday.
Thank you. And any other comments from the audience? Any comments online about an item that's not on tonight's agenda?
We have one hand raised.
Hi, this is Catherine. I said I wouldn't dial in, but I am, and I hope it's okay to comment item 4.1. I don't intend to comment this later. I'm literally at the grocery store with my kid on my e-bike. We're parked, not riding right now. Wanted to comment that I ride with my kid all over town to get groceries, and I'm doing that right now, getting some groceries from Monterey Market, and wanted to express my support for bike lanes on Solano in particular. I sent an email with some data points, such as we should help people burn fat, not oil, with a reduction in vehicle miles traveled, but for climate. But the main point being that people's health can be improved by biking more with bike lanes, as well as different businesses. Research on Valencia Street in San Francisco, Polk Street in San Francisco, as well as other places like Portland, shows consistently that bicyclists visit businesses more often, spending more money, which is good for both sales tax and for small businesses. Other points I've covered in my email, but wanted to say I support more bike lanes all over town, especially on Solano. Thank you.
Thank you. Any
No
other?
other.
Wonderful. All right, then on to the consent calendar. Does anyone wish to pull any items from the consent calendar for further discussion? And this request can be made by any commissioner or member of the public. I'd like to request to pull 3.3, injury collision data.
No hands raised online.
Sorry about that. Good. Okay. So Commissioner McCroskey could not be here tonight, but he emailed us some questions he had from the item 3.3, the injury collision data. So I'm going to read his comments and questions. Ticketing of moving violations went up significantly from the end of 2025 through the beginning of 2026. Yet, injury and fatality collisions spiked at the end of 2025. He's requesting more analysis of this. What categories did the moving violations fall into? What types of violations and vehicles were targeted? And what was the intent of the rise and return to more historic ticketing levels? That is Commissioner McCroskey's comment. Are there any answers at this point, or perhaps a future discussion item?
No response at the moment, but can request deeper dive at a future agenda item.
And I'd just like to echo Commissioner McCroskey's concern and ask that when data points are posted, there's some definition provided of what the individual data points represent. It's a little unclear when you look at the raw data what the source of that data point is and what the definition by the person or agency providing the data actually represents. So if we could have that as part of our report, as an addendum or a footnote or whatever, it would be helpful to me. Thank you.
And I would like to mention or just point out for people who might not have had a chance to comb through the attachments, but the report includes fourth quarter 2025 injury collision data. And of those, 4 are collisions of a car with bikes and 1 of a car striking a pedestrian. And all of these are at intersections that are on the active transportation plan. 3 of them are along Masonic and 2 of them are along Solano. So it's an unfortunate reminder of what we can do it's an unfortunate reminder of the reality of the unsafe intersections and streets, but it is also potentially a hopeful reminder for us of the responsibility that we have and the opportunity that we have to make this better. So yeah, just wanted to point that out. Anything else on 3.3? Then I will move to accept the consent calendar.
So moved.
Sorry, may I ask a question? Since I was not at the meeting in March, should I not vote on that one in the minutes?
You're not required to abstain, but you can choose to, if you would like that item to be taken separately from the rest of the consent.
It seems uncontentious, I'll just leave it.
I move consent.
I'll second.
Roll call. Commissioner Kerr,
Yes.
Commissioner Thiessen,
Yes.
Commissioner Zuba,
Yes.
Chair Hiley.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right. Now we are into the meat and potatoes. It's a long meeting, so we're going to try to get through it. First up is item 4.1, which is the active transportation plan, draft plan document.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, Commission. Tonight, pleased to present the draft active transportation plan to you for your consideration. We will go through briefly the purpose of the plan. I'll recap the activities that have led up to this point. I'll run through the document's organization and the updates within since your last discussions on the content, and provide the staff recommendation before opening up for questions and comment. So briefly on the purpose, delivering a active transportation plan, an updated plan from our current plan is both a City Council strategic plan item as well as an action called for in our climate action and adaptation plan. In particular, the document draft reiterates that the ATP really serves as the comprehensive guide for both cycling and pedestrian improvements in the city going forward, as well as supportive programs and policies to encourage active transportation and provide a safe network. So briefly, recap of all the work that's gone into bringing us to tonight. The update process has really gone through 3 phases. The first phase, establishing the goals and reviewing existing conditions of the network today. The second phase focused on what the future vision for both the pedestrian and cyclist networks should be. And then the third phase was identifying priority policies, programs, and projects to implement that vision. So each of these phases has gone through a series of development, both starting with a technical advisory committee made up of city and partner agencies, departments, and representatives to review materials, then a public community meeting and online engagement, then bringing the content to the Transportation Commission for your discussion and feedback, and then on to City Council. And so we've gone through 3 rounds of this, developing the plan content that's packaged and provided to you tonight. Aside from those phases of development, we also had a couple of focused parallel engagement that took place. One was looking at schools and really started with a kickoff meeting with AUSD site leadership to talk about how to effectively engage the school community. Really, the culmination of this engagement was in May and June of last year, where we engaged with a range of AUSD stakeholders, had one-on-one meetings with each of the principals, attended 2 coffee with the principal parent meetings, and had a discussion with the high school leadership advisory students. And that led to what's in the plan tonight, which is really specific school access projects that are identified, and several of which are in priority projects in the recommendation. The other focus look was really on Solano Avenue. In May of last year, City Council provided direction for city staff through this process to develop an alternative configuration for the street that reorganizes parking to parallel on one side and 60-degree angle parking on the other to provide a uphill separated cycle track. In May through July of last year, the engagement on the future network included a discussion of the Solano Avenue corridor. We had a focused technical advisory committee discussion specific to Solano Avenue in August of last year, and followed with door-to-door and online outreach to Solano businesses to talk through concepts. And that all culminated with a discussion at this commission in December of last year, where we went through the analysis of the concept, and this body made a recommendation to City Council to include Solano Avenue on the cycling network in the ATP, and to continue the planning towards an uphill protected bikeway on Solano Avenue, which is reflected as a component of one of the projects in the plan. I'll also reiterate that this is a planning document. This isn't a project approvals. It is direction on what future projects are scoped and what is developed, and individual actions on projects takes place at the project level. So this is a planning document that will guide future work. So, diving into the details of the document organization and some more specific updates on the content since your last discussions. The first chapter really goes through the purpose, the goals, and related documents and guidance that were referenced, and the 4 goals that were developed in the first phase are shown here. They include access and connectivity, safety and comfort, positive outcomes for all users, and a focus on implementation and funding. I'll just note also, since this was a topic of discussion at various points in the development, we called out a focus on how we're using terminology in this document. Walking, biking, and rolling is a term used to reference that there are a range of different mobility options and users of these networks. We do still use pedestrian network and bicycle or cycling networks because they are distinct often. There are places where, shared use paths and where they are the same, but they are in other instances separate facilities. But we want to acknowledge that when we're using those, they are speaking to a wider range of users than just a fully mobile person walking. There are a range of people using the pedestrian network, and similarly, there are a range of devices now using the cycling network. So as I talked through already in the work that we've done over the past 2 years, the second chapter really focuses on detailing that work, on the flow of development of the content that's in the document and the stakeholder engagement that went along with that. The third chapter is the existing conditions review. There were a couple things I noted in the staff memo that are new to this chapter, so just highlighting that for the commission. One is within the existing mobility networks, there's now a discussion of existing bicycle parking and survey work that was done for that. And in the safety and comfort analysis, there is work that was presented during the second phase, but is really an existing condition analysis of the pedestrian network and the sidewalk gaps and challenges that exist on the current network. Chapter 4 details policy and program recommendations, and just calling out that the policy recommendations, I believe this is the first look at that. It was developed earlier, but I don't think we presented them directly to the commission before now. So that is a new element. And then Chapter 5 gets into the network recommendations. This was the outcomes of that second phase of plan development. It details the active transportation networks, the network quality guidelines associated with those, and really talks through the levels of the networks that are developed and the priority biking and pedestrian networks that have a higher comfort guidance for those. And then calling out a couple of new items just to highlight changes since the last presentation of these. On the proposed pedestrian network, the main change to note here is that the priority network, the high comfort network, is in this one brought to the public entrance of Albany Hill Park, so going along Hillside and Taft there. The earlier version came from the south from Catherine's Walk, and utilized the informal trails on private property. And in staff review, as well as in the project development, it really makes sense to bring the priority network to the public entrance to the park. So that change is recommended here and reflected here. On the biking network, I think the main couple of changes since the last public review of this, signal icon has been added to Keynes and Marin, which is where a Hawk beacon is planned as part of the Alameda County Transportation Commission parallel bike project. And the intersections along Curtis, Marin, and North have been added to the bicycle priority intersections list because they reflect crossings that don't have cross traffic controls like the other ones. So they met that same bar for being identified on that. And this, I think, was presented as part of the discussion of projects, but it's also a useful map, so been incorporated into the network recommendations chapter, identifying based on the priority networks and the guidance associated with those, where there are facility recommendations that result from that, and what areas have multiple options that could meet the guidance, and that need further study, are not proposing particular facilities. Or, as with Solano Avenue, ones that have particular facility recommendations that have already been made as part of the plan development. Chapter 6 then goes into the implementation recommendations. It identifies the priority projects that were the discussion of the Commission's most recent review of this plan in March, was it? So long ago, February or March. And they break, the organization is a little different, so I've shown those here. It has a table for projects that are already under a stage of design development, and then has tables for the priority projects that are not yet initiated. And there's sort of two sets of those. There's I think 15 projects on that second list, reflecting the feedback from the commission and from the city council discussions. And then there's 4 priority programs identified. The main one that I think has had a change of how it's described and identified is that first one. It's intersection safety and visibility. I think previously it was focused on the daylight zone and areas where the red curb at intersections could use additional treatments for making sure that they remain visible. But there were comments related to accessibility and intersection crossing improvements that are related often to the visibility and to making it safe to cross. And so the program was broadened a little bit to really focus on a level of where you need a new crosswalk, but it may have curb ramps, be a larger component to be able to deliver, or may have the visibility component, sort of a range of intersection safety things that as a program we might be able to tackle before a broader project or corridor could get to them. So it's folding in sort of a range of things that come up often but are beyond maintenance level activity, but we might not want to wait till we get to a larger project to be able to tackle them. That is the program recommendation. So the final piece, Appendix A, the documentation of all the engagement materials and feedback is forthcoming. That'll be added with the final revisions. And then Appendix B is the more complete project list. So it has the ones that are called out in the priority projects and then now reflects 2 additional essentially groupings. One is other identified projects that are on the high comfort networks, and then the more complete other identified projects that are not. And that is reflected in the appendix. So that is the document and the latest changes and updates. After tonight's meeting, really the next steps are final revisions and layout to make it a more final document and to bring that to the City Council for adoption. So the staff recommendation, pending your discussion, is that the Commission recommend that City Council adopt the 2026 Active Transportation Plan. And with that, I'll open it up to questions.
Justin, any questions from the Commission?
Hi. I had some questions, and we're doing only clarifying questions now, right? Hi, let me just take a moment to go off agenda for one quick second and say, hi, I'm Britt Thiessen-Tanner. You can call me, Britt Tanner Thiessen. I'm getting my name changed. You can call me Britt Thiessen. I am new. I come to the Commission after being a traffic engineer for San Francisco for 23 years. I currently work at MTC. So I have some traffic engineering experience. My question is, how was the high comfort network decided as part of this plan? Because I'm curious to see that Marin is on the high comfort network, but it doesn't seem like, yet it's described as not being high comfort. It's literally described as being low comfort. So I'm not trying to give an opinion, I'm just trying to understand, how was the high comfort network?
The high comfort network is
determined?
essentially a subset of, are you talking the biking network?
Yes, for biking.
So it's a subset of the biking network where the goal is to meet a all ages and abilities higher level of comfort on that set of facilities. So it is a tier that the plan is calling for higher level of design and safety and comfort to meet a wider range of users than the full cycling network.
May I offer potential additional clarification? Possibly, are you looking at the existing conditions?
No, I'm looking
and
at figure 15. I was just surprised to see that Marin was labeled as high comfort and Solano was not. I know that I'm threading into some of the discussion that I expect we're going to be having later, but I'm just trying to understand how we decided that Marin would be high comfort and Solano would not.
Marin was indicated to be designed to high comfort. We had direction on what facility types we should be looking at on Solano within the earlier council policy direction and range of parking implications that they had appetite for. And the facility type that was developed is a one-way cycle track, so it doesn't provide a high level of comfort in both directions. And so we have it on the base network, not on the high comfort network because of that.
That makes sense.
Any other questions? I have one. Can you explain a little bit more about what the mixed bikeway type means on Keynes and Adams and the new figure?
The mixed bikeway type is intended to reflect different facility types in different directions. So the policy direction is to have a contraflow bicycle lane, so it would be a lane in one direction and shared with vehicle traffic in the other direction.
Okay, thanks. All right.
Yeah, I just have a couple thoughts. First of all, I want to thank you for a great report and for the work that you're doing. This is summarizes a study that goes back to October of 2024, and it's the amount of stakeholder input in this, and hello to all of you who have come tonight. The amount of stakeholder input that's gone into this is impressive to me. I really appreciate that there have been some real strong efforts to reach out to the community and get some input on this active transportation plan. So I'm not inclined to want to hash out details on it tonight, because I think it is a product and a presentation that has been fairly well worked and gone over. And I also want to underscore the fact that this is a framework. It's not a prescription for what we're going to do. So while we may have individual thoughts about one intersection versus another intersection, I'd like to remind everybody that this is just the directive. It's not the prescription of what we're going to absolutely do. So I want to just thank you for the work that's been done, and look forward to discussion from everyone. Thank you.
All right, so we'll open up to public comment. Just because we have a full agenda, and I know a lot of faces in the audience that we don't usually see, can we get kind of a count of how many people online and in the audience are intending to speak on this item?
If you're online and wish to speak on this item, please use the raise your hand feature.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Okay, awesome. And that's awesome. We love having civic engagement, so it's really good to see.
Can I just ask, since people did make the effort to come, could they be called in advance of the Zoom?
Yeah.
Oh, yes, that is how it works. So yeah, we can do that. So given that we have a lot of interest for public comment and a limited amount of time tonight, I suggest that the comment is limited to 2 minutes. And really appreciate everyone for being here, and thanks for understanding. All right.
I've got some slips. I can call folks up that provided slips, and then maybe those that didn't can queue up after.
Sure. Yeah, that sounds good.
So if Audria and McMurray wants to come up, and after that, Jack Rolls can be ready to go.
Good evening. My name is Adria Ann McMurray, and my address is 834 San Carlos Avenue, which is 1 block off Solano, and I've been a Albany resident for 30 years. I guess the first thing I would like to address is this public outreach or stakeholder outreach you're talking about. I had never even heard of this plan, and I try to stay fairly involved in the community until about 2 days ago. I spoke to several of my neighbors. None of them had ever heard anything about a bike lane on Solano Avenue. And then I spoke to 2 business owners that I personally know, the laundromat and the dry cleaners. They're both small businesses. Neither one of them had ever been contacted or talked to about this. It was a total surprise to them. So I'm not sure what kind of public outreach there has been, but it certainly hasn't been very effective if you want to reach residents who also have a stake, I would assume are stakeholders in this. I'm opposed to the bike lane on Solano Avenue. I think it's unsafe, and I think the fact that the fire department apparently has said that it would impede their ability to reach both sides of their truck. I mean, I think that should be a top priority for the city council, is public safety. And I'm assuming they would have to sort of stop in the middle of the street if there was an emergency on Solano Avenue that they had to get into, so they could get to both sides of their truck, and then traffic would be completely stopped. 2 minutes is really kind of lame when we came all the way here to speak. And the second is, I think it's unnecessary. There's already bike lane on Washington, there's a bike lane on Marin. So I don't think we need one on Solano Avenue.
Thank you.
Jack Rolls. Jack Rolls. And then next up, Didi Parcino. Ancino.
My name is Jack Rolls, and I live at 730 Cornell Avenue. I am a very new member to this community. My stepson is my landlord. He bought the house about 20 years ago and has since moved to other locations due to his work. And he decided that it was time for us to come and be someplace that was closer to him, number one, medical care, number two, and to be able to handle ourselves, because we lived out in the woods for like 25 years. And all of a sudden we found out that we'd gotten old. So every day, Kathy and I walk up and down parts of Solano Avenue. See very little bicycle on there, but I do see an incredible number of vehicles parked there. And when I do have to go to locations on or near Solano Avenue, because I have to carry stuff more than I can handle in myself, I have to find a parking space, and that is not easy. And if you're going to start taking off parking spaces, I know for a fact that my son loves to come here and visit because this is one of his favorite places that he's ever lived. He will probably not be coming here enough. He will not be spending any money here, and his family will be going other places where it is easy and convenient for them to be there. My biggest concern is that I live on a very full block. There's about 50 people or more on my block alone on Cornell Avenue, and there are 3 people who ride bicycles, excluding a couple of kids and 1 girl. The only time she ever rides her bicycle is to go to school or to go someplace specific activity that she has. Other than that, nobody on my block rides a bicycle. And I'm the oldest male on that block by at least 5 years. And so I'm finding it complicated, the fact that we're taking away the ability to provide for the people who have businesses on Solano Avenue, the people who want to be there. And I'm just a little concerned that it's going to be difficult for me to enjoy myself here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Didi Pancino, and I'm a longtime Albany resident. I'm against the bike lane on Solano, and here's why. Loss of parking will be loss of accessibility for disabled persons, seniors, and families with a lot of kids. Residents of both 1 block north and 1 block south of Solano may lose parking when people park on their blocks looking for a space, like my friend Adria Ann. The other thing is we are now a destination, a foodie destination and a shopping destination on Solano. So we have not only Albany people coming in to go shopping and to eat, we have people from the city, from Walnut Creek, whatever. They're not going to ride their bike. The other thing is city budget potential impact. The city is standing to lose about $2 million a year from the sale of Golden Gate Fields. Not sure how the money is moved around and where it goes, but that will hit the budget. Also, there are current existing bike lanes flanking Solano on both Marin and Washington. And to have an extra one in the middle for 10 blocks seems kind of silly to me. And then it's only 10 blocks long, and as Adria Ann had mentioned, the fire department concerns. I wish everybody good health and nobody has an accident ever, but life happens. And when it does, you need fast first responders, and they need to be able to help out. Also, DEI ethics. Basically, it makes it more challenging for vulnerable members of our community to access the avenue. So DEI also includes disabled persons and women and people with a lot of kids. So just give that a thought. I recommend divorcing the proposed Upper Solano 10-block long cycle track from the ADA and the street beautification so it can be voted on and funded separately. Thank you for your time and your consideration.
Thank you.
Peter Campbell, and then after him, Elaine Stoughton.
I've been trying to contain my anger this evening. When I was notified of this meeting on Friday through the city's email system, I downloaded the documents, I read them, I analyzed them, I wrote a letter to you. Did you receive my letter? It was put in this morning. I wrote a letter regarding my comments on that document. I checked the website again at 6:30 this evening to make sure I had everything that I wanted to say. And lo and behold, this document was there. It was posted yesterday. I question whether this conversation is even legal because it has not had adequate notice. I believe the requirement is you have 72 hours, business days, 72 business hours of prior notice before you discuss an item. This item was not noticed on Friday when it should have been noticed. Therefore, I question whether it's a legal discussion that you're having right now.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Elaine Stelton. I represent Albany Property Rights Advocates. We represent housing providers in Albany. We would consider ourselves stakeholders. We are usually consulted. Nobody reached out to us at all. So I would like to propose that we have a meeting at one of the rooms at the community center, and we have some community engagement. I think community engagement is really important here. Oftentimes, you might think of housing providers as being a relatively small group, but we do represent our tenants as well. I can guarantee you none of my tenants know this is going on, and probably most people in Albany don't know this is going on due to the lack of information that was provided. 72 hours is required. You might want to consult the city attorney before you do anything further. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Are there any other written comments there?
Barbara Grady.
Thank you. And I want to thank the Commission for developing this plan and for your efforts to make Albany a bike-friendly city. I think generally it's a great plan. I live on Santa Fe Avenue, where I've lived for 20 years, and I would just say that my one disappointment is that Santa Fe Avenue is not in the plan. The road from Santa Fe from Marin going south to the border is very potholed and creased, and it's very unsafe for bikes, even though the road is marked as a bike trail. I personally have been thrown into traffic when my bike hit one of those creases or potholes, whatever, and it just jostled me 4 inches into the road. I've watched school children from Marin almost get hit on the sidewalk because bikers tend to ride on the opposite side of the street, which has been paved by the water company when they did some work. So half of that street, the west half is paved and the other half is, the east half is paved and the other half is not. So bikers go the wrong way often on that road so they can be on a smooth surface. But anyhow, it results in accidents when people jump up on the sidewalk because it's a busy road. There's trucks, there's cars. my husband got his foot caught in one of the potholes, and, his foot was messed up for a couple of weeks. And I just think that it would be really great if you paved that road to make it bike safe and pedestrian safe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else in the room on this item?
Thank you. My name is Jamie Tibbetts, and again, I live at 974 Peralta. I have a family of cyclists, and we also have 2 cars, and we drive and enjoy Solano by both methods, but it is definitely hard to bike on Solano, and in current states, I can't imagine teaching my kids to bike safely, and I applaud the recommendation of a one-way cycle track. I think that's a great solution. As somebody who also drives, I do think removing traffic in both directions, parking in both directions would be a big impact to small businesses. But at the same time, I think safe mobility, especially on the uphill side, is a really great priority. As Albany has many different age groups and mobility choices of its pedestrians, I think it's important to think about what people aren't doing and the reasons why they might not be doing it. And I think a big reason you don't see children biking around on their own in the streets and during summer and after school anymore is because the whole world has become increasingly car-centric, and speeds have gotten faster, and cars have gotten bigger, and blind spots have gotten bigger, and it just doesn't feel safe. And I think this is a great way to encourage more independence in our youth and their ability to also spend money on Solano and buy themselves treats and to use their allowance and feel like they are a part of this community and not just a second thought. So I applaud everybody for the effort into this, and I understand it's a big change, but I think this is a change that is definitely worth making for the next generation.
Thank you.
Anyone else in the room? One.
Howdy. I'm Judith Cohen. I wrote y'all a letter. I hope you got it. I lived in Albany for 34 years. I'm now a senior. But when I was working and living in Albany, I rode my bike to work almost every day. And I worked at Laney College. So what I did do was find streets that were not well-traveled, that were safe for biking. I stayed off big thoroughfares, and I made my way through downtown Oakland safely every single day. What I wouldn't do is ride on a main thoroughfare. I wouldn't want my kids to do that, and also as part of the business community, my family owns a business on Solano that would definitely hamper parking and accessibility, and we would protest that. As a senior, I think it's unsafe. As a parent, I wouldn't want to be unloading my kids, it would be grandkids now, on a busy street, because if you see a bicyclist or an e-bike, God forbid, come zooming down Solano, that could be a recipe for disaster. So I'm hoping that that will be separated from these other very good suggestions and find a better use for accessibility to Solano. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, no other comments in the room. Thanks again for coming out. Now to comments online.
David, go ahead. David Wimmer, go ahead.
Hello?
We can hear you.
Oh, good, thank you. Yes, I'm a longtime Albany resident, live on Pomona by the high school. I'm a member of the Albany Climate Action Coalition. And I'm urging approval of the ATP as is. I think you guys have done a tremendous job. There's been lots of community input. I think now is the time to pull the trigger and move forward with it. We, as a city, we're trying to reduce miles driven. That's in our plan, and we're kind of behind the curve. And I think, the more safe bike facilities and pedestrian facilities, getting people out of their cars, we can, meet those future goals of reducing miles driven. I think specifically, I think having the bike lane on Solano Avenue is one of the key elements that I want to see move forward. It provides safe access to our most important commercial corridor. It doesn't make sense for me as a biker to bike over to Solano, visit a business, and then I want to go to another business, and then going over to Washington or Marin and jogging up and jogging back. That's just not, that's kind of almost like discriminatory to us bikers. We deserve to have a bike facility on Solano. The cost is minimal. It's part of a big project, but it's just basically some painting of the pavement. There's really there's super minimal loss of parking. I think a lot of people are blowing that up and saying all those sorts of parking is gonna be lost. That's just not the case. I've never seen the numbers to support that. So I just think we just need to move forward with a vision of accommodating bikes and build it, and they will come, and just getting that our community more focused on other ways besides dangerous cars. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Evan, go ahead.
Hi. Hi, Council. I'm Evan V. McClanahan. I'm a former commissioner on that council, and have been involved with the ATP since the beginning, at all the various stages of public outreach. And as tempting as it is to try to address some of the misstatements that have happened earlier, I just want to say that I support the ATP as designed, and encourage you to pass it with no changes, because I think it is the real outcome of a good process, and that did involve a lot of public comment over the years, and a lot of thought and care by the staff, and by our consultants, and by the commission as well. So sorry I couldn't be there in person. I was running a little late today. Thank you so much. I'm done.
Thank you.
Anyone else online wish to speak on this item? Go ahead, Nick.
Yes, hi, this is Nick Pilch, also formerly a member of this commission way back when, as well as other bodies in the city. I appreciate Commissioner Kerr's comments that the product before you has been hashed out through an incredible amount of public outreach, as was outlined in the staff presentation. I urge you to pass it as is. I am also tempted to debunk some of the comments expressed tonight, but I think you probably have already hashed through those already. The fire department does not have any issues with the ATP currently, and disabled access can only be improved through this plan, both for those who drive, by adding more disabled parking spaces, and by improving the sidewalks and the curb cut. To speak to a Solano Avenue bicycle facility, there's no city around here, El Cerrito, Berkeley, Oakland, that we would reconstruct such a wide street without equitably accommodating those who bicycle and otherwise roll. They just wouldn't do it. They have done it. and they usually remove parking spaces in the process because they understand they should be prioritizing our climate action goals by doing all we can to encourage those who walk and roll. The current plan, I understand, removes none or very few parking spaces. In any case, the ATP says to study one of those plans, and the details of that plan to accommodate cyclists and rollers more equitably can be hashed out during that study. So once again, I urge you to approve the ATP as it is now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else online wish to speak on this item? Not seeing any hands raised.
All right, thank you. So now we'll move into commissioner discussion. In order to facilitate a focused conversation that can result in some good recommendations, I am going to recommend that we take it section by section. Sometimes we just all each say all of our comments in a big chunk, but I suggest that we take it section by section. So if that works, does anyone have any comments for section 1? That was, let's see here, I'm going to pull up the table of contents.
Introduction and goals.
Yes, thank you. Introduction and goals. Any comments for introduction and goals?
I have a nitpicky comment. On page 6, when you're listing the related documents and guidance, I would add the MTC transit priority policy that was approved in January of 2026.
All right. Anything else for section 1?
I'm having trouble following the rules here, but
that's all right, we can try.
Give it a go. I would like to see, in addition to the 4 goals that are listed, a consideration of cost-benefit analysis, as I kind of envision going forward that there could potentially be bond measures that we would want to address on this, and I'll talk about that more later.
All right. Thank you. Anything else for section 1? All right. Any comments on section 2, plan development? Nope. All right. Any comments on section 3, existing conditions review?
I do, but hold on a second. Let me get to that section.
Scroll.
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I have some comments on page 18, which was a description of the active transportation biking network. I was a little confused just by the description of separated bikeways as them being most common on high-speed arterials. I don't think that that is a... I have seen many separated bikeways that are not on high-speed arterials, and I think that that is something that could be clarified or reworded. On the second bullet, bicycle lanes that are painted on the street can sometimes include a painted buffer. I just wanted clarity if that included painted buffers that include parking, or if that is considered a separated bikeway. And then in the last paragraph on that page, there is a description of the primary networks, and I was just confused why Portland was not included on that list.
Some of these were questions. I'll introduce Pete Rusiti online on the consultant team. If you have any feedback on that, Pete, I think the clarification on the networks, well, I'll see if Pete has a response on that.
Yeah, thank you all very much, and thanks to members of the commission. Sorry I couldn't be there tonight, but definitely feel like I'm getting to know many of you, and welcome to our new commissioner as well, and thank you for the questions. Great to have someone with MTC direct experience and some traffic experience to help us out. So thank you for coming into the process and helping us review the document. I guess a couple different things that you noted. The first one was a few different points about the descriptions of the bikeway types, and thank you for that. I think there's a lot of room to further clarify those. There's a lot of different definitions of those if you look at the different guidance documents, and so we want to make sure we come up with one that clearly communicates what we mean. So thank you for both of those. I think one was about separated bikeways and how they are kind of, I think it used the term high-speed arterial, and certainly there's a lot more types of contexts where you could put that, and we see that in Albany, so we can broaden that to include more roadway types that would benefit from them. And I think that's consistent with the all ages and abilities standard that the document uses later on to define that. Your second question regarding the descriptions was about striped bike lanes with painted buffers, and I don't think I completely copied the question, so I wonder if either Justin, if you have a response, or if Commissioner, if you could restate that.
I just wanted to clarify. It says bicycle lanes are lanes that are painted on the street and could sometimes include a painted buffer from vehicle lanes. And I was wondering if the painted buffer could include parking, or if that fell into a different category.
Usually if it's parking separated, I would consider it in the separated bikeways category over the bicycle lanes that are buffered bicycle lanes, but we can make sure to clarify.
So just clarifying then, the first one, separated bikeways are on-street bikeways with vertical physical separation. It doesn't necessarily need to be vertical. It could be parking. So just general updates of those two bullets could be helpful.
Right, so like referring to a parking protected bikeway lake on Marin, for instance, and that would...
Correct.
Yeah. Certainly could be part of it. So we will clarify that with staff. And again, thank you for the careful review. We want to make sure that we are communicating this clearly, and there's a lot of kind of close but slightly different, definitions of these types of facilities. So we want to make sure that we get it right. And then I think there was a third question you had, Commissioner. I don't think I wrote it down, but if you could restate that.
The third question, I don't think you need to address it now. I just wanted to note that I was wondering if the list in the last paragraph was supposed to be inclusive of all of the roadways that are considered part of the network. And Portland, I thought, was a primary street and it wasn't listed. I don't really need an answer now. I just wanted to point that out.
Thank you for pointing that out. Certainly, I think through the network development process, we've had certain corridors that have been added or taken away, and that text may not have been updated to reflect the latest network. So we'll make sure that that is consistent. Thanks.
All right. Commissioner Kerr or Ziba?
One question I had is for figure 10 with the existing pedestrian network. You've noted the sidewalk gaps and other challenges, but I wondered if we could also include like where there is an existing high comfort network. I know that these maps are sometimes used for reference for the public to look at existing infrastructure. And so I know that in the bicycle equivalent, we do have it marked where there's highest comfort, high comfort, medium comfort, and then also the areas where there's opportunity for, improvement with low comfort and very low comfort. So I'd just like to ask that, if we could add something on the existing pedestrian network to show where there is high comfort networks. I don't know, how do the rest of you feel about that?
I need to take a look at that.
This would be figure 10 on page 27. Or I don't know if it's just assumed that anything that is not noted there is high comfort. I don't think that that's true, correct?
Happy to jump in, Justin, if you like.
Sure, go ahead.
Thank you. Sorry, I didn't mean to step on staff, but wanted to make sure that I had the opportunity to clarify that. Part of what makes this tricky is that there is a pretty clear objective standard that we use to define high comfort for bikes, and that is the all ages and ability standard, which is adopted by NACTO, and it's also part of policies for regional bikeways adopted by MTC, and in the guidance for Alameda CTC on how to do an active transportation plan. So we have really good guidance in terms of the bikeways, in terms of what would constitute high comfort or not. The pedestrian, there's not really quantitative guidance like that. And if not to get too wonky, but if I can refer you in the draft plan to table 8, which is on page 46, we discuss network quality guidelines. That really is kind of where we've landed in terms of how prescriptive we want to define base network versus high comfort network. So again, for the biking, it's relatively easy because we have the NACTO standard, which defines vehicle speed, vehicle volume, facility types. So we can really kind of grab onto something for that. For the pedestrian, as I think, if you look at table 8, it's much more of a judgment call. So instead of kind of defining high comfort, we defined what the minimum standard was, which is a sidewalk or path with ample width, no obstructions, and full accessibility, including curb ramps. So what you see in figure 10, that map where we tried to identify the gaps, because there's so many sidewalks in the city, we felt it was easier to depict where we did not meet those guidelines, where we don't meet the base network guidelines. And the high comfort, really, it's a little bit difficult at this level to say if a high comfort corridor exists, because if you kind of look at that column where we defined the high comfort pedestrian standard, it's a lot of case by case stuff. It's, depending on the context, if it's a commercial street, you might want wider sidewalks and kiosks and furniture and things. If it's a residential street, it might just be, a pathway with some street trees. So we weren't as prescriptive on what defines high comfort because there's not an outside standard that we can kind of latch onto, and because the context differs so much. So that's why there's a little more analysis on the bike side than on the pedestrian side, and why the pedestrian map shows the gaps and the issues more so than specific comfort levels. So I hope that helped to clarify.
Yeah, thank you. Then that's fine if that's how it is. I guess when we get to the proposed networks, then we can talk a little bit more about that for figure 14, because you have highlighted pedestrian high comfort networks there. But I think then that's fine. I think then keep table 10, figure 10, how it is.
There is one map that we used as part of the engagement that maybe would speak to at least our investments that we've made. So we could see if there's a PED specific version of that would speak to the intersection and other project investments that have been made over the last 10 years that would reflect where we've improved the comfort. It wouldn't, as Pete was saying, be sort of to a standard in the same way, but it would at least reflect where the city has made improvements.
My other comment is on figure 12. I think that this is on the citywide bicycle level of comfort, page 30. I think this is something we've talked about before, and I can't remember where we land, but I still feel that uptown Solano, so Solano east of Masonic, should be classified as very low comfort due to the high congestion, the high vehicle volumes there, and also the risks associated with cars that are backing into the lane where people are biking. I don't feel like that section of Solano would be equivalent to, say, that northern section of Masonic that's also orange. They feel like significantly different biking experiences and shouldn't be the same level of comfort. So I would propose that east of Masonic on Solano, that should be a very low comfort section?
I don't know protocol. I would say east of Canes because that's where the back at the angled parking starts.
East of Canes. Yeah, so you're saying also downtown Solano. Yeah, I would agree. I was the reason why I didn't say that section is because the speeds are even slower, and I know that they're including speed in this calculation, but I agree. I think all of Solano should really be very low comfort, but at the very least, uptown Solano should be very low comfort on this map. What do other commissioners think, or how did that? I feel like this is something we've talked about before, and I can't remember where we landed on it. So maybe you can give us an update on this thinking.
This was part of earlier commission and council discussion in the development. So it started with using level of traffic stress evaluation, and then from there layered on community feedback about comfort. So it is reflecting adjustments from the pure speed and volume and travel lanes level of information. And that is reflected in what is provided here from that feedback.
When I look at the streets that are listed as very low comfort, I do see a qualitative difference between Solano and San Pablo. So I think there is something to be said for the fact that the speeds are generally slower on Solano, and it fits my criteria.
Okay, that's not a point that I'm gonna press on, but the reason why I'm bringing it up is because I think people may use this document as kind of a guide for themselves, thinking through, where are like safe or more comfortable paths for them to travel. And so I think it's not just something for us to be using internally as kind of, for us to gauge, but the public will also be looking at this. And I think that it's important for us to have an accurate representation so that we don't end up with people thinking that, that path seems like it could be a safe path for me to take, and it's really not. I get that the speeds are significantly different, but I think that the obstacles along Solano are very significant, with cars double parked, cars backing up, all sorts of stuff. But it's okay. We don't have to.
Apologies for not understanding the format for this discussion, but I would refer you then to Figure 9, which is the collisions. And I went through and counted. There were 16 collisions on Solano between Jackson and the eastern limit, which to me, compared to 4 on Washington, and 12 on Marin, does back up that it is a less safe street. So I would support a very low comfort rating for Solano.
And the collisions is an important metric that I don't think we heard was included in any of that previous analysis for the determination of the level of comfort. Was it considered in?
Pete, I see your hand raised. Do you want to respond on this one?
Thank you. Thank you guys for a really good discussion. I guess addressing the immediate question, the collision rates were not part of that. And the reason why is because, as Justin noted, we began with a well-accepted quantitative metric known as level of traffic stress, which doesn't look at the collision rates, but instead looks at vehicle speed, vehicle volume, number of lanes, factors like that. I think that's it, but maybe one more. And then we layered on top of that. And this was, this was about 1.5 years ago when we started the project. So you're forgiven for not recalling the nuances of that, since you've been through many, many meetings since then. But we then we showed that map at our first phase of outreach of here's what the quantitative data shows about how comfortable these are for bikes. And then the TC, the council, and stakeholders at our first community meeting weighed in and said, well, overall this is good, but this segment doesn't match my lived experience when I bike it. And your data may say it's safe, but it's not good to get through this intersection. And so for the most part, we adjusted things downward to reflect community input. But for that reason, what you see in this map is it's kind of a hybrid of a quantitative method and then a lot of community council and stakeholder feedback, applying some judgment to that. So there's a lot of room for debate on what constitutes, high or low stress. The LTS metric that we started with had 4 levels, and you can see in the map we actually broke it out to 5. And kind of based on the discussion that we're having tonight, you probably could even break out another level and say, well, something kind of between Solano and San Pablo. And we totally understand we needed to kind of put our pencils down and move forward. And I think what we have identified, clearly reflected in the comments tonight from members of the community, is that there's a lot of opinions about Solano and about kind of what level of comfort that should be. And so that, I think, is where we really want to focus, is kind of what do we do about that moving forward. The last thing I wanted to point out also, not to forward you to another part of the document, but in figure 16, where we show the facility type recommendations, there's another designator at the bottom of the legend. And right now it applies to Santa Fe and Masonic and Pierce, where we call it challenging corridors. And there's a little icon that we put on a few of the corridors to note, while there is a designated bikeway here, it is noted to be kind of a little bit more challenging due to things like traffic volumes or, say, cars backing up or anything. So we had a commenter earlier who mentioned actually Santa Fe falls into that category, and we definitely agree. And that's why, again, Santa Fe, Masonic, and Pierce have that challenging corridors designation. And I think that might be a good way to designate the sections of Solano that have the angled parking because of the backing out part or things like that. So that may be a way that we can designate, again, that is a bikeway that bikers are welcome to use, but they should know that it's a little more challenging than some of the other ones in the city.
Can I ask,
I'll stop there.
Can I ask a clarifying question on that? When you did your quantitative analysis and you were quantifying the level of stress on Solano, did you use the same factor for for the angled parking as you did just for parking being present, or was there like a higher level because of the angled parking?
The level of traffic stress metric does not consider the parking status on the street. So that was not part of the consideration. But again, after we did the LTS, we wanted to make sure that was vetted through the community. And so there was an opportunity to kind of tweak those. And so that would have been a good time to say, well, LTS metric doesn't count angled parking. We believe that lowers the comfort level, so we want to lower that down. But again, the quantitative metric doesn't include that.
Thank you.
I appreciate that we've hashed through a lot of the details in the past. I would like to recommend or request that even at this stage you consider adding in collisions into the metric. I think that since that wasn't included in the original determination of existing level of stress, and I don't think it was really made aware until these later phases of the project. It's clearly an important metric that we do want to consider. Also, given that the priority projects are determined by one of the 3 factors for determining the priority of projects was the existing safety or the safety improvements that it could have. Obviously, safety is an important factor in determining what our priority projects are. So I think considering the safety, which would include collisions, in the level of stress analysis would be important to reflect similar metrics. So understanding that that was a phase 1 item, just a request that we can consider collisions as well.
So just to clarify what you're asking, are we asking that we table this advisory measure until these changes are made, or are we ready to act on this request for an advisory measure tonight? Because I think the question before us is this report sufficient to move ahead, or do we start over again? And
oh, no, so I don't think...
I want to clarify.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you are.
I don't think we need to review it again. I
Yeah.
think that these are like relatively minor, suggestions, and they can take these comments and suggestions and then.
So would we then look at it again, or are we ready to release it to council?
I don't want to look at it again.
Okay.
Agreed, yeah. Yeah,
I don't.
thanks for checking.
I don't either.
If I can jump in and add one more thing about that, the level of comfort map that you were looking at early in the document, that was really done, excuse me, in phase 1 to kind of get the lay of the land, to understand what are the issues, what are the opportunities, how does the network feel to people who use it. Later in the project, once we had a list of projects and it was time to prioritize those projects, if you go to chapter 6 in the document, page 49, there's a table in there, table 9, that looks at the prioritization criteria and how we actually prioritized it. And one of the criteria is safety and comfort. And we looked at both the comfort rating, which we were just talking about, but also if a corridor had a high collision rate, that also was a factor that would have bumped it up in the prioritization. So again, the initial comfort rating used the quantitative metric, didn't look at the collision rate. Again, that's not part of the accepted quantitative metric, but that was just at kind of the beginning to understand where the corridors were. As we got into actually prioritizing the projects, both the comfort rating and the collision rate were part of the criteria used to evaluate.
May I make a suggestion? On figure 12, there is a note on the bottom left corner that says the source is the City of Albany 2024 level of comfort, blah, 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 blah. It includes these things. It considered bicycle facility class, observed speeds, obviously. You could just say, like, add a sentence. Collisions were not considered. Collisions in presence of parking was not included in this analysis.
Or type of parking, yeah. Yeah, I like that.
So, I mean, the exact verbiage could be worked out, but just adding that note to this document would explain that there are additional considerations that were not included in this map.
Yeah. I'm satisfied with that.
Yeah, good suggestion.
Yeah. Okay, I think those were all of my comments for this section. I'm going to pass it to someone else if they have comments for this section.
Are we ready for a motion?
Not quite.
No,
we're on section 2.
We're only on section 2. No, we're on section 3. Okay. But yeah.
Progress is being made.
Yeah.
And I have a couple comments for section 3, if that's in the last one. Let's see here. On page 28, the description, or it's in the descriptions of each of the 5 comfort levels, for highest comfort, Ocean View Elementary School and Albany Middle School are included in this, saying that they're both located along these high comfort level facilities. And I think that that statement is a little bit misleading. Mm-hmm. While it's technically true that they are located along the high comfort streets, the reality is that they're surrounded by a bunch of low comfort and lowest comfort streets. So technically that statement is true, but I think that
there's not access to them.
Yeah, there's no actual access to those streets, so it's misleading and kind of in a way communicates that access to those schools is already highest comfort. So I would suggest removing this statement or revising it to something like Ocean View and Albany Middle School are located along highest comfort streets, but additional access and egress routes need to be included for a complete network. Something like that to address that, yeah, it's currently not part of a high comfort network.
Yeah, I agree. I think just take them out because it's misleading.
Also on that page 28, in the low comfort section, it describes both Marin and Solano. It gives some good detail of why Marin is considered low comfort, referencing the high vehicle volume, speeds. I think yet there's not the similar explanation for Solano, and this could also be an ample opportunity to include some of the other reasons why Solano is considered low comfort, such as the collision rate.
Well, here, this is not including the collision, because this is just talking about vehicle volumes and speeds. They're not including collision or parking in this low comfort for figure 12.
Yes. Good point. And these descriptions are in line with the methodology that was used. Okay, yeah. Well, if the...
Certainly could, I'm sorry to interrupt, but as someone who's, spends a lot of time reading these documents, a shorter document is not something that many people complain about. So these are pretty wordy descriptions. I think anything that we can do to, if some parts of them don't read right, we could probably, trim them and make them a little shorter and a little more short and to the point. And maybe that could address some of these points that you're making.
Okay, thank you. My last suggestion for this, I'm not sure if I might have missed it, but I think the methodology focuses mostly on segments, street segments, and not intersections. Is that correct? So I don't know if that's already mentioned, but I think that would be useful to mention as well.
Correct. And again, we used the accepted methodology and wanted to make sure that we were using an accepted standard. But reasons like that is why we kind of then applied that more community stakeholder judgment piece to it. And I think I would say probably the most common comment that we received was that maybe this segment is good, but it's really hard to get from this block to this block because I have to cross a high traffic street, a high stress street. And if you're looking at the stress of the whole corridor and just the segments, it may not reflect that. So I think a lot of the downgrades that we made from the quantitative metric was because of intersection issues. So I'd like to note that although we didn't dive super deep and quantitatively analyze all 200 some intersections in the city, we did make sure that where we got feedback on those intersections, that was a factor in lowering the comfort rating. And I believe there is on one of the maps that shows kind of some of those, I guess it's in the recommended facilities where we show the high priority intersections, some of those blue dots where we've identified some of the real issues there.
Yeah, okay, thanks. And I did see that in the summary of challenges, I do feel like you amply addressed the intersections, which I also remember being a common topic throughout this entire process. So yeah, sounds good. That's all I have for that section 3. The next section in the draft is section 4, policy and program recommendations, from page 32 to 40. Any comments on those pages?
I would like to see on figure 14, page 43, we don't have a high comfort network planned for the north side of Albany High and Albany Memorial Park. And that is a known segment that it has a lot of challenges. And there's not really even a functional sidewalk on that section.
I think you skipped ahead.
Oh, I thought we were on section 4. Isn't this?
Page 43 is section 5.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. Okay, never mind. I don't think somebody else can start with section 4. I don't think I have
nothing
any,
on section 4.
Yeah, I don't think I have anything either.
I do. On page 34 and 35, referencing policies 2.3 and 2.5. So obviously the plan references and mentions the NACTO guidelines for high comfort networks for all ages and abilities. And I might be missing it, but I don't think it makes a statement about how the city will implement achieving those standards. So I would like to see, I would suggest something that kind of makes that connection of how these standards are going to be applied and used in the active transportation plan. And one way that I could see that working is by adding something to policy 2.3 and 2.5. references all ages and abilities, just because, and the reason why I chose 2.3, that's the traffic calming, and 2.5 is speed management, because those are the two metrics that the NACTO guidelines makes a direct relationship between speed, volume, and comfort. So there might be a better place to put that, maybe right within the section where that table is located on page 45, but just some way to kind of connect those dots. And then also on policy 2.5, which again is the, jumping around here, the speed management. It provides some possible options for speed management, and I would recommend including something like engineered solutions or design features to the list of speed management tools. And that's all I've got for section 4.
Following on your comment on policy 2.5, you could add traffic calming to that list of measures. First, reducing speed management and enforcement. You were saying engineered solutions?
Oh,
like traffic calming.
Such as.
Yeah. If it's appropriate.
And I'm just going to throw something in on policy 2.9, sidewalk obstruction and management, because it's pedestrian focused. I think there are a number of folks who live in our city who struggle to actually keep their sidewalks clear because they don't have the capacity to do the gardening that's required. And I'd like to see somehow there be some mention in here of support resources for homeowners who need assistance in keeping their sidewalks clear. I'm envisioning civic organizations or neighborhood associations who could help an elderly neighbor or someone who couldn't clear their pathway. So I'm not sure how to language that, but put something in that would be a solution to that problem.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, anything else on section 5? Or what was that? 4? All right. Section 5, network recommendations from page 41 to 48. Any comments or suggestions?
I'll repeat the one that I was preemptive about. But I really would like us to have something planned for the north side of Albany High and Albany Memorial Park. This is a sidewalk section that gets brought up frequently. And I know that it might not be feasible to make it a high comfort network because I know we have some existing tree root systems that make a sidewalk there really challenging. But it's a section that really is lacking sidewalk access. That is a pretty main and high use area. That's all. I don't know.
I'll just note it's not on the high comfort network on this figure 14 diagram, but it is a listed project.
Okay.
It's called out in the gaps map, and it is in the under development high tier project.
Great. I must have just missed it. Thank you.
Any other comments or suggestions for this section 5?
I find figure 13 a bit confusing. I think I could live without having it be in there at all. It just doesn't, putting four data points, 4 points of perspective into a single circle just doesn't work for me. I'm not sure what part of the pink section is bike and what part of the pink section is pedestrian, and the same for the base network. So I could just live without that being there at all.
What page is figure 13 referenced on?
42.
No, yeah, I see the figure, but where is it called out within the text? Is there anywhere where you?
It's referenced on page 41.
Oh,
it's described on page 41.
Oh, I see, figure 13, I see.
And then it's, well, I think another disconnect might then be that it's not referenced in those terms on the following figures 14 and 15 for the proposed networks. So,
Yeah, that's a good
it
point.
just doesn't.
There's not a base network section and then a high comfort.
I think my interpretation is that, at least for the biking network, the teal, the light blue streets are that base network, and then the green is obviously high comfort because it's called out, but
On the bike map, but there's not that same thing on the.
right, the pedestrian network doesn't have.
It's not illuminative to me.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. Can you clarify, what additional kind of point that figure and those sentences were trying to make?
It's really just trying to illustrate what's discussed in page 41, and that there are networks that are being proposed to a higher level of comfort, but they're not the entire network of facilities for pedestrians or for cyclists. It's got both there because there's a little bit of a distinction between, on the bikes, there's all streets, there's bike facilities, and then there's a subset of that's on the proposed high comfort network. On the pedestrian side, it's more two-tier, that there's sort of all streets, sidewalks, and then the subset that's high comfort.
I don't feel strongly about the graphic.
Yeah, me neither.
It did take me a moment to understand it. Once I did.
Send me a roadmap.
If I can just note, thank you all for the comments. I think Justin mentioned this. This review draft is not like the final graphical layout. It's largely text-based. There's no photos in there, infographics and things. So now is a great time to comment on some of those draft ones, because our graphics folks are actually going to be laying out kind of a prettier document, and we'll have a chance to revisit some of those and make it a little clearer. So thank you for that feedback now. And that's something we can take forward, and the final document hopefully will make that a lot clearer.
Nice, thank you. Thanks for bringing that one up.
Yeah. And then.
Anything else on section 5? All right, ready for section 6? Section 6 is going to be
Implementation recommendations.
yes, implementation recommendations from page 49 to 56.
And I guess it would also include Appendix B, just because that's referenced.
Oh yes, appendix B.
I don't have any comments on this section.
I guess echoing back to my comments at the beginning of the discussion, if we were to add a section about cost benefit, I'd like to see it reflected in this section as well. I don't know if that will make it to the final document, but it helps me when I'm doing sort of a quick overview of understanding to look at the cost benefit analysis and then to see it reflected at the priority projects section.
I guess I just want to ask a little bit more about what the cost benefit we think would include, like what types of costs, direct monetary cost or?
Yeah, because this is a policy document, it's a little hard to envision what it would include, but I always look at something in terms of what's this going to actually cost me as a taxpayer. So I don't know if that can be captured in a policy document. Maybe it's not appropriate there, in which case I don't need to see it. But if there is a way to reflect that a single track up Solano versus a dual track up Solano is more cost effective, or if there is a way to talk about any of these projects in terms of how much they would cost and how much benefit the community would gain, I would like to see that included.
I do appreciate the principle behind it. I wonder, though, if at this stage of the plan, because those weren't specifically developed in any of the initial phases, if there's enough existing information that has gone through the review process for it to be included in this specific document.
And if that's the case, that's fine.
I also feel like that might be more appropriate for looking at specific projects when you're looking at different alternatives versus a citywide plan.
That's something I was also going to note. Thank you, Commissioner, that for many of the facilities or of the corridors in the document, there are different options for the types of facilities that you could do. And that's not true for all of them, but for many of them. So for those, obviously, it would be a little more difficult to cost those out because they would have different costs if you did, a bike boulevard versus striped bike lanes versus protected. It certainly is possible to kind of come up with a kind of a high level estimate. We do have a lot of cost data on that. But because we're at a very high level, it would be kind of more of like like when you go to a restaurant, you've got like the $4 signs, $3 signs, $2 signs, as opposed to really arriving at a specific cost, just because that would take too much kind of project level analysis, like you mentioned.
Yeah, I like that strategy. $1, $2, $3, $4 signs would help me. Yeah.
To the extent that we can make that call again, where there is enough of a prescription for a facility type, I think we could probably build that in, but we may not be able to go to that level of detail for all the corridors and all the projects.
I might be concerned if we don't have the complete information for every single project, that it's inconsistently applied to some but not all of the projects, which could cause confusion.
Yeah, I have a similar concern with specifically the Solano Avenue piece. And we've already heard that there's a lot of confusion about the cost of the bike lane separated from the cost of the other improvements. So I would want to make sure that we're not making it seem like the bike infrastructure is what is driving that cost. It's just one piece of this whole Solano improvement plan. That would be my other concern, is that some of these add-ons that we're proposing are like coupled together because of logistics and everything, that they could end up seeming like one is driving the cost when it's really the other thing that's driving the cost. I like your idea of including, cost and benefit analysis, or having that
very broad level.
Yeah, having that be part of it.
Yeah.
Could
we can apply something very broad, like a per mile cost. There's pretty well accepted costs, even for certain urban areas, for like Bay Area cost tabs that we can use to kind of apply a per mile. So if there is a prescribed type of facility, if it's a striped bikeway buffer, we can apply some sort of a per mile to get to that like $1 sign, $2 sign level. But again, that's going to be a very kind of a blunt instrument, and it's not going to consider the specifics of certain, getting through, if there's parking you have to move, or if there's curbs you have to move, or if certain intersections would need, new mast arms or things like that to account for that. So it would be very, very high level, just looking at how long is it and what's the facility type, just to get to that really like couple dollar signs. But that would be of limited usefulness, I think, because as soon as you started to drill down, you'd need to get more detailed costs at the project level.
Yeah, even with the possible estimate, I really don't think we should include the dollar signs. I don't think it really adds anything to what the overall document's trying to achieve. But instead, I still, again, I do agree that it's important to consider the cost benefit, which we actually did do in this, in phase 3, to look at the trade-offs. So perhaps the suggestion is to include some of the material about trade-offs that was already discussed in phase 3.
I would argue that point. I don't think a policy statement needs to be a carte blanche for budgeting. I think we need to have a rough, very rough approximation, and if we define it that way, that's fine. I think the public needs that kind of information to make an opinion about the plan, and I think the public is capable of understanding that it is an approximation, not a specific projection of costs. So I would argue that rough approximation does inform the public and does provide us with basic information that's useful. That's all.
So where would this dollar sign live? Is this like where it would be in the project list and we would have an additional column that has a projected relative cost? I'm talking about, what is this page? This is the, I think this is one of the Appendix B. Is that where you're suggesting it would live, Judy? Or?
I actually don't know, but I would be open to suggestions on where it would be the most useful for public information. I don't know.
I'll just caution that we don't have a lot of budget to detail a lot further the ones that are less developed projects. The ones that are higher up on the priority list or under development are the ones that we have a little more detail on and a little better sense of the cost, but probably a little less beneficial because they're already in the development stage. But if there's some information based on the,
not where it belongs, and I mean, I'm willing to be talked off of that, but I am concerned about costs. So anywhere that it could be fit in would be good. But if it doesn't really fit in a useful and informative and a way that really reflects what could potentially be the final cost, then let's not mislead anyone.
Right. Yeah, I would agree. I think that would be my biggest concern, that any inclusion could be misleading, and so unless it's like really clear and accurate, it probably shouldn't be included.
there may be a distinction on some of them with the level, like some of them call out particular intersections or small, like that's a different scale project than ones that are streetscape or corridors. So there may be some level of like distinguishing on the scale of them that based on the descriptions we have that we could do, if that would be informative, but that is described to some extent in the project description.
Yeah, I think that could help.
Yeah, I feel like it might not be appropriate to be including at this point. Like, for example, like some of these projects are, widening a sidewalk that's, up on Albany Hill, Washington Avenue to 5 feet. Like, I walk up there all the time, but, the cost benefit of that, it affects X people that walk on that street versus the project on Solana. So I don't really think that with the level of information that we have at this point, that trying to create something when you don't have enough information is going to be very informative or worth delaying this document. However, I do think that Appendix B should include the limits of the project. So for example, Washington Avenue pedestrian corridor should clarify which streets it's between.
And we definitely have that information.
I think
it's actually in a
probably
hidden
a column that
in
you
there. We just
hid.
wanted to
Yeah.
make it fit on the document, but we can certainly add that back in.
You could add it to the project title, might help. Since the descriptions are longer than the titles.
Something I wanted to bring up, and I feel like it's a little bit unfair because Ken isn't here, and he was the one that was a proponent of this, but going to table 14 for the priority programs, I know that he brought up railroad safety as being something that he wanted in like the list of programs, but I don't know if we like agreed that that should be a priority program. Am I misremembering that conversation?
I think technically we did
say
suggest
we
that
want it
it
to be
was a high
priority.
priority program.
Okay, never mind then. I thought that it was just going to be added to the program list.
I can check my notes, but I think at least there was no disagreement
Okay.
that it would be.
That's fair.
That's my recollection.
Okay, that's fair. The only other comment I have, and I'm not sure exactly where it could fit in, but one concern that I have is that there's no clear program or path for how there's going to be coordination between Albany Unified School District and the implementation of some of the projects in this ATP. And I bring it up because historically we've had issues. I'm thinking of the development of Ocean View Elementary and Marin, where, you know, now that Ocean View has been built, we're doing all of these kind of retroactive fixes to try and improve the bike and pedestrian access to the school. And I think there are some similar issues at Marin, though not as significant. And I bring it up because the school district is now developing a new facilities plan for major projects, one of which includes Cornell Elementary. And I have been kind of advocating and talking through, some of those plans. And one of the things that I have pushed for is for them to include in the drawings where they're going to have bike parking for the school. And they updated that, and it's now in the plans. However, they're putting the bike parking on Cornell, and I recognize that this is all very preliminary and et cetera, but they're putting the bike parking on Cornell Avenue, but we, on our proposed bike networks, we're not, like, that will not be where the bike access is, the bike infrastructure access is to Cornell Elementary. And so I want to make sure that we have some organized and developed communication, and I don't know if it's a committee that is developed between the city and Albany Unified or what, so that we don't have these same mistakes where projects are being conducted siloed, and then we're having to make these fixes and kind of get things to work after the fact. I see you.
This will be my one contribution to tonight. We did have a meeting with the school district and to review the their facilities plan, and talked about these very issues of coordination. And as soon as they ramp up their design effort, they're going to engage both community development and public works, and we'll assign someone, likely Allison, to work with the designer throughout the project. So hopefully you can head off. That said, we could probably add something to the ATP as well, but just want to let you know that those discussions are happening.
And is this a different process than what existed during the last cycle of Ocean View and Marin updates?
I believe so. I think that was ramping up as I was coming on board, and so we weren't as involved in it, but we're connected now.
Perfect. Thank you.
Right. Any other comments for Section 6 and Appendix?
I feel like it might be appropriate to say a few things about Solano Avenue being included in here, just to acknowledge that we did get 24 emails about it. 14 were in favor, 10 opposed, just for the record. I want to say that this is just approval of the plan, that the active transportation plan for the whole city. And so approving this document and having it listed is not approving that we're putting that specific design on the street. However, I am supporting that project be included for a number of factors. One is, I looked at the collisions, and there were 16 collisions on Solano, 12 on Marin, and 5 on Washington. So even though there are facilities on Washington and on Marin, people are biking on Solano. I am biking on Solano. And we don't ask people to park on Washington and Marin. So why are we asking people to bike on those streets when people are trying to get to businesses that are on Solano? There's also a lot of misinformation. So the parking that's being lost, looking at the it was November 28th document, there were 11 parking spaces that were being removed, and I didn't count today. There are 20 parking spaces that were removed for parklets for 9 businesses. So if those businesses felt that it was okay for those parking spaces to be removed for their benefit, I feel like we can remove 11 parking spaces to benefit the people that are biking to Solano. The fire department concerns, I don't understand what the issue is. There's 27 feet clear between the roadway with the conversion of the roadway, so I don't see there being a clearance issue. And another concern that came up today was about people biking and speeding by in the bike lane. The bike lane is only in the uphill direction, so those are people that are going slower. So I just wanted to acknowledge that I heard the comments and I read them all, but I still believe that is a good project that could be moving forward to be discussed again here. So,
Yep. Yeah. And I'll just add also that the issues that were brought up today are things that we have discussed and considered in previous meetings. So these are not things that, we're kind of dismissing. We've just had these conversations multiple times, and so that's why we're not having them tonight.
and I'm new, so I had to say all that.
No,
Sorry.
I appreciate you, but I'm just to give clarification to those in the audience. With that, then.
Two more comments from Commissioner McCroskey.
Oh, okay.
For section 6, including the appendix. Commissioner McCroskey's suggestions are to move the list of priority projects to the front of the document. He states that it's the most accessed part of the document and should be easy to find. So I guess that just means the priority, he's just talking about the priority projects. It wouldn't be the entire Appendix B list of projects, but he is suggesting moving, what would that be? Pages, the data on pages 50 through 52 to the top of the document.
That feels a little like out of order.
Yeah.
Like, what will be the context for those projects?
Perhaps an executive summary could be added.
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, an executive summary.
That's a good suggestion. And then Commissioner McCroskey's second suggestion is it's easy to scan down the index and find Appendix B project list. Text at the beginning of this list identifies it as Active Transportation Plan Project List Review Draft May 2026. I would like to see a bit more explanation that it's a superset of the priority project list and a page reference back to the priority project list to avoid confusion.
Does
that make sense?
To me.
All right, I think that's it.
Go ahead.
Since we didn't do it at the beginning of your comments, I was just going to note to the one public comment on the agenda materials going up. The packet did go up Friday, close of business. My apologies if someone saw the agenda up, but before that was loaded, but it has been up since Friday, end of day.
And I can confirm that I looked at it
We'll make
Friday
sure to
about
try to
5:30.
make sure the notification goes up at the end of the day rather than earlier so that that doesn't happen again, but the materials have been up. Apologies for any confusion.
Thanks for clarifying.
Are we ready for a motion?
Yeah. Yes, any more comments? Wonderful.
I don't want to mumble, or I don't want to jumble the the language. Can you put up what you want us to, what you were requesting of us, Justin, and then I can form the motion?
It's in the
What was our agenda? What was this agenda?
It's the,
Recommend the council adopt. Okay. I would like to put forward that we adopt or that we recommend that the council adopt the 2026 active transportation plan, including the small changes and edits that we discussed and agreed upon today.
I'll second that.
all right, roll.
Commissioner Kerr.
Yes.
Commissioner Thiessen.
Yes.
Commissioner Zuba.
Yes.
Chair Hiley.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Great. Thank you.
Good job, everyone.
Yeah.
2 hours.
Well,
I think we had really
But I think
good
that
discussion.
It was big. It was
Yeah,
big.
that was great.
It was good. Collaborative, helpful, productive. I appreciate the conversations we had.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll be out of here by 1, I'm sure.
Yeah. So it could be a good time to note that we'll see where we're at on time. We do have 4 items. We'll check in on time again at the end of item 4.2 and 4.3, but we might have to defer item 4.4 to a later meeting. But we'll check in again on time after item 4.2. So that next item.
Thank you. Item 4.2 is discussion of an upcoming call for projects, which I guess it's not upcoming. I think they released the call this afternoon by the Alameda County Transportation Commission for the 2028 Comprehensive Investment Plan. So the Comprehensive Investment Plan is a 5-year programming document with the first 2 years being allocating a fund similar to what we do with our capital improvement plan. It's going to be programming approximately $200 million across a range of different funding sources and target programs. And really the projects are focused on comprehensive transportation projects yielding significant benefits to the countywide transportation system. And they also note that in general, smaller projects that could be funded through local means are less of a priority for their discretionary funds. The attachments to the staff memo provides the full guidelines, but I'll run through some of the key points. It's programming some bicycle and pedestrian specific funds from county sales tax measure, BB, and the vehicle registration fee sources. It also has some funding allocated towards community and transit-oriented development, and then some sources that target sort of multiple different programs. The key one under that category is the One Bay Area Grant Program. And they have also a separate call or for projects specific to what they're calling a Safe Routes to Schools Pilot Capital Grant Program that they've targeted $4 million towards. The selection criteria detailed in the call and the programming guidelines focuses on the needs and benefits demonstrated by the project, and that's half the scoring. Project readiness is an additional 40%, so really targeting construction ready or confirmed able to deliver kind of projects, and 10% for bringing matching funds from other sources. And then the One Bay Area Grant, Cycle 4, it's federal funding that's distributed through Metropolitan Transportation Commission. It's shifted from direct to jurisdictions to county transportation agencies nominating projects to the region. So it's being handled as part of the same call that's programming county sales tax sources. It's got focuses on priority development areas and regionally impactful projects. There is an attachment for a complete streets checklist for one of the projects we're recommending. That's part of the requirements for this program. And again, the Alameda County Transportation Commission will be nominating a suite of projects for this funding source as part of this process. So a little more specifics on that 50% needs and benefits. It's broken down really to 10% for general benefits and how well defined the need and how the project is demonstrating it will benefit or address that need. And then the others are really geared towards key elements of the county guidance documents focused on equity, safety, climate, and economic vitality. The equity is demonstrated through benefiting equity priority communities that are defined or accessibility ADA transition plans. Safety has two components. One is on a specified high injury network or proactive safety network that are county identified networks, and then 10% focused on the safety and countermeasures that the project itself is doing to address those. For climate, it's really focused on active transportation and transit priority and demonstrating adaptive and resilient elements to your design. And then for economic vitality, it calls for looking at connections to employment centers, multimodal access, maintaining state of good repair, and quality of life within priority development areas as areas that are seeing future growth and development. Safe Routes to School Pilot Capital Grant Program has a different scoring criteria, but it is pretty similar. It has a little bit different weighting and calls for slight variation on some of the elements, but has still matching scoring, high injury network. The needs and benefits is a little lower percentage, and project readiness is actually a little higher, 45%. So the memo talked through the project pool that we looked at for this, and I'll run through the 3 projects we're recommending for looking at preparing applications for. The first is the Pierce-Cleveland Bikeway Connection Project. I did discuss in the memo, I kept the name as it is because this is in our CIP and what we've presented previously to funding agencies, but I think as we've developed the scope of this, it probably merits a name change and really calling it a path connector, because this segment in particular will not just be the bikeway connection down to Buchanan, but will be serving pedestrian access to the park, parallel access to Pierce that'll actually be more comfortable for a segment for folks heading north-south along Pierce between the 500 block and further south. So referring to it as a Pierce-Cleveland path connector or connector path, I think would better reflect that it will serve multiple modes for this specific project. It is a gap closure. It is a high priority project from the 2012 ATP. It is one that we've been making headway. The segment next to the affordable housing project to the south that was completed in the last couple of years. Next year, we have the segment along Cleveland that will be in conjunction with paving and drainage work, and so it really will be the last segment to complete that connection. We have some seed funding that is, hopefully we'll get to a presentation in a little bit on where we're at with that. That will be starting that work, and we are engaging with Caltrans. We are looking to go through freeway right-of-way and get an easement from Caltrans, so we already are going through full Caltrans process. Will be sort of similar things that we would need to do with federal transportation funding, so looking for OBAG funding from this would not make it a much, would not add to what we're already having to do in terms of coordination with Caltrans. So we are recommending this as a good OBAG submittal project, and why we prepared the checklist for that. We also presented proposed Solano access and safety improvements. So currently we have the ADA curb ramp project that is under initial design. We'll be having something come to the commission later this year for discussion. And we're looking at, given that we have issues called out in our local road safety plan and the citywide streetlight evaluation, we have a 10 to 20 year streetscape project that we've been talking about just at the last item as part of our active transportation plan. Could we do an electrical specific, so signal improvement at the Santa Fe Solano signal, RFB crossing enhancements, intersection lighting, things that are really focused at intersections that could complement the accessibility improvements we're planning to do over the couple years, and still leave open the realm of what's under discussion for the broader streetscape, but address some of the safety elements that have been highlighted in our collision analysis and could benefit from improvements in a shorter time frame. And the third is looking at that new pilot project for safe routes to schools. We do have some older site assessments for several of the schools. We do have several projects that have been under development or under design discussions previously that we haven't pulled together the funding or project to implement, that we think this could be a good package of projects that could address the sidewalk gap on Thousand Oaks on the north side of Memorial Park next to the high school, could address the cycling gap connection that we looked at originally as part of an envisioned paving project along Brighton that did not happen at that time, but that would connect Greenway to the middle school, look at additional intersection crossing improvements, curb ramp and pedestrian access improvements that are identified in some of those site assessments. So that is the third project that we're recommending submitting. So with that, the recommendations twofold. One is to recommend to council the three projects as detailed here for submitting for the call for projects and entering into required agreements upon any award for those. And then the second is your review of the Complete Streets checklist that was provided and any comments you have on that. So I could pull that up if it would be helpful to go through that, since I know we had a meaty item before this. So happy to also, run through that in more detail if warranted. And with that, I'll open it up for questions.
Thank you. Any questions from the commissioners?
Justin, I'm just curious, the number of projects that were submitted, was there any reason that we limited it, or how many could we submit, or is there a ratio that you submit 5, you get 2? I mean, how's that work?
There is a limit. What we recommended is not at that limit. I think it was 4 projects, up to 4 projects, plus I think that didn't count the Complete Streets pilot. So we could submit more, but we are also limited by staff capacity and in what we submit, and acknowledging we're a relatively small jurisdiction amongst the county. So I think
that's fair enough.
Our recommendation, just in terms of what seems the most competitive.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right. Are there any public comments about this item?
No.
Hands raised. All right. Any discussion from the commissioners? I'm
happy to leave time for us to get through the other agenda items.
Wonderful. No, it's a very well laid out plan. Appreciate you guys finding great ways to get these projects funded and being creative with it. So yeah, I have no comments.
The only comment I have is on the checklist on item 3, where you have safety and comfort, and you note that pedestrian and bicycle injury collisions have been documented along this corridor. I would just recommend putting in like how many in recent years for some contextual information. I know that it's not part of our high injury network, but I think that it just feels a little bit vague with this, but I don't know if that's intentional because there's not that many. But I think that having the data might be helpful. But you are welcome to disregard my recommendation if it doesn't make sense.
I think the reference was that there hadn't been collisions, but that part of the issue is there's a lot of potential demand and just a lot of not of use on the street because of but I will double check the collision information before we submit.
Okay, yeah, because the language you have right now is pedestrian and bicycle injury collisions have been documented along this corridor.
Then I will review that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Great. With that, then I will move to that the commission recommends that the council authorizes the city manager to submit grant applications as detailed in the rest of this item.
And that we review the Complete Streets checklist? Oh, that we didn't have to do that. Never mind. Apologies.
Right.
I'm learning.
Yeah. Same.
I second the motion.
Great. Roll.
Commissioner Kerr.
Yes.
Commissioner Thiessen.
Yes.
Commissioner Zupa.
Yes.
Chair Hiley.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you for all the work on that.
Yeah.
All right, then on to item 4.3. Before we get into it, though, shall we move to extend the meeting time till 9:45?
I agree with that.
Sure. Yes.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, item 4.3.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Allison Carrillo. I'm the Capital Improvement Program Manager with the City of Albany, California. So with this one, I'm going to repeat what Justin mentioned. We're looking at changing the name of this project. It's not just a bikeway, it is a shared use path that we're looking at for this particular component. But for consistency, since we haven't yet changed the CIP project name formally, we are still calling it Pierce Cleveland Bikeway Connection for this presentation. So context for this project, we've heard about it in kind of large form with the ATP and the last item. So this is dialing in on where we are right now. This project, still fairly large picture, it's a project that's shown in both our park master plan and the active transportation plan. So this project is being discussed at Park Rec and Open Space Commission. We brought it in January to discuss the alignment along with other things when we had an initial conceptual plan based on the original alignment. But we're also have ongoing discussions in a different effort to talk about park programming, making sure that we understand the space needs on the park end, and that we're weaving the transportation needs and balancing both of those through design refinement, or kind of conceptual plan refinement, I should say. On the active transportation front, there's 2 gaps on this bikeway network. One of them being the Cleveland Avenue Bikeway. We presented a draft plan late last year showing this. This is supported by an Alameda CTC construction grant with construction anticipated starting in spring 2027 for a on-street separated cycle track. For this specific project and this specific presentation, I'm going to focus on the Pierce Street Park limits. As Jensen mentioned previously, we do have a planning grant that was awarded by MTC, and we've started with the conceptual plan development and outreach and engagement. This is one of the kind of wrap-ups of this conceptual level outreach and engagement process. We're also working with Caltrans to understand their requirements, and I'll get into that in a little more detail. I kind of repeated what I said, but Caltrans is a significant amount of work to get through their right-of-way. We have to make sure that the bikeway follows their design standards, meets their requirements before we can be issued any kind of encroachment permit, and they generally require that projects be at 100% design, meaning we know what we want and what their requirements are before they'll even look at it in any kind of detail. So we have been lucky enough to start that conversation. We were able to reach out to kind of the local project manager who deals with these types of projects, and she was able to have 2 to 3 intensive meetings talking through what all the different reports are going to be, which I will very high level show. I don't think we're going to cover those at this point, but that will be part of the development. We also want to make sure that we understand community needs, both on the transportation front and on the park front, so we can best balance everybody's desires and needs. And at the bottom is the specific grant that is being supporting our efforts right now. It's as mentioned, Metropolitan Transportation Commission, the 2024 Climate Program Implementation Grant, and it's providing technical assistance, seed funding. Shown here is an image from the park master plan that gives a very high-level idea of a path along with programmable space. If you're familiar with the park master plan, this is upside down, and that is because on our design drawings, it was reversed to have the north arrow going towards the northeast, and I didn't want to confuse folks. So I'm putting that out there just to clarify for anybody who may be twisted around. The current access and circulation within the park is a major component of kind of the park recreation discussions. And then we also have, I think, the larger access needs to get to the park, which is more of an active transportation front. But of course, the access has to also extend through the park. And so we spent time talking with Parks, Rec, and Open Space to kind of delineate the difference between what is kind of a circulation path and what is a access path. And there were kind of various configurations that we looked at on these of can we maximize programmable space by combining the bikeway and shared use path with kind of local circulation, or is it better to separate? And kind of following the initial layout, conceptual design from the park, it was showing 2 separate paths with slightly less programmable space. Give me a second, I actually need to get my pointer working. That will help a little bit with actually talking through this. Okay, so in light blue over here, this is the Caltrans right-of-way. So the Pierce Street path, the existing portion of it next to the condos connects over here. We are looking to extend the path through Caltrans right-of-way to avoid a crest here where we would have to climb and then drop back down. And then here is a portion of the city-owned right-of-way, or city-owned property. It is currently an unused open space that is fenced off. And then we move into the actual park itself. This is the portion of the park that if you visit, you can actually access right this moment, although there's only restrooms and a small playground, along with some kind of walking paths. We are absolutely looking to improve this park in the near future if we can find funding. Then following this, we have a portion of the path in light purple. This portion here has been completed under the Saha development. So we are connecting to this portion here at the right, and this portion here on the left, which is an existing sidewalk shared use path. And as I mentioned previously, we do have a separated bikeway component that's being designed currently on Cleveland Avenue. So larger context here, this is the gap closure. We do have, this is important for access to the Bay Trail. It's also, we're looking to connect to bikeways that El Cerrito and Richmond have on their plans. I think one of the most important things on my end to highlight is, and it's no surprise to the folks here, but is that how many people in Albany live in this kind of yellowed area. We have 10% of residents that live here, so this bikeway is going to be very much something that helps a good percentage of the city of Albany. Now getting to site challenges, because this is always the fun part when we get into civil design. Jurisdictional challenges. So in red is the existing access control fence. I mentioned we can walk through freely within this area, and even though this area is city property, we cannot freely walk through it. There is a Caltrans access control fence that remains there. So going back to challenges with that. It's a small project within a large interstate. So that means that it goes through federal level approvals for access control adjustments. We also, even though it's a small project, trigger almost every type of report imaginable. Some you can't even, some were surprises to us as well. That being said, we do have specific contacts now within the different departments who will be reviewing this. We just have to get our designs to a point where they can set up their internal funding to support the reviews, and that generally means getting to 100% design development on our end. That doesn't mean it's a construction-ready set. That just means that we are satisfied with our final configuration. So it's very important that once we get to that point, we don't make any major changes, which is why we want to have these conversations early on to figure out what it is we want out there. Other site challenges are the actual connections. So this is, again, a civil challenge, luckily not a bureaucratic one, and sometimes easier to deal with. On the south connection, this switchback that you're seeing there is because of grade challenges, meaning that we are climbing a hill. And on the north side, we have site challenges with the narrowness of the area that we're working within and making sure that we are creating a comfortable environment that people want to use. Going into more detail, on the south side, there's a portion of the bikeway that's been constructed up to this point in space, right here where my cursor is hovering. We have to make the connection through here, and to do so in a way that is ADA compliant, we are lowering that corner of the property by 8 feet. There will be a lot of earth being moved. We saw that happening with the first half of the path that was constructed by Saha Development. The good news on the civil front is that this is an old freeway overpass, and so from a structural perspective, this soil will hold up to some changes. However, and I don't know if I have the image very well documented. Yes, you can see it here. So this is the conceptual grading plan of how we will make that happen, how we will maintain accessible path of access throughout. But what I wanted to draw your attention to is this piece right here. We are at a very steep embankment, an engineered slope that Caltrans installed as part of their prior work, and we will be entering that, so there is some coordination with Caltrans there as well. Despite this being our property, they have an easement, maintenance easement in that area. Other site challenges, making sure that we have bike ped visibility, and understanding kind of what path widths we can build and what path widths we want. Especially in the switchbacks, we're going to have a hard time getting wider paths. But as we flatten out, we may have room to provide a little bit more width. And we'll talk about kind of path widths, and would actually appreciate feedback on path widths as we move on in this presentation. Site challenges on the north. So as I noted earlier, it's a very narrow property. We are trying to, the reason for this going through Caltrans right-of-way in this area is to avoid a crest that peaks over here. We do have an existing sidewalk on the west side, or sorry, on the east side, but it's not really the most comfortable for getting to the park, nor is it the most comfortable for cyclists who have to come up in topography, come up in grade, and then come back down. We have an existing interstate at grade in this area primarily without guardrails. And then as we get further down south, and this is going south, our property is actually slightly lower than the interstate, and it effectively cars are kind of at head level. So one of the things we really want to focus on with this design effort is how do we make this area more comfortable so that when we build it, it will be used. So this is an image. I kind of have an arrow up here showing approximately where this is taken. This is a section of the Caltrans right-of-way where we are at grade with the vehicles. And this is, as we go further down, I think unfortunately it's a little cut off, but this is further down towards the park where you can see that the cars are now elevated above the park. And then finally, next to the park, we are in a grade separated overpass. This is where comfort level is expected to improve. So going back to kind of the comfort question here, this is from the park's master plan where the proposed alignment of the path is following the western edge, the closest to the freeway, in order to maximize programmable park space. However, in discussions with Caltrans, with some of their requirements for clear recovery zones, amongst other things, there are proposed changes to this configuration that we wanted to discuss with you. And so outside of just how close we are to the freeway, this is a very windy area. There's not much shade. Trees generally do not grow well in old freeway embankments, and lighting levels are something that we do need to discuss. Caltrans has gone through and put in their own lights, and we want to make sure that we have a design that properly lights, doesn't overlight, doesn't underlight for the new pathway. These are things that we're looking at. This is showing the existing alignment in the park's open space. Over here in this kind of gray to orange, this is trying to show that there's an uncertainty about what is actually programmable, given comfort and what we can feasibly install given Caltrans' clear recovery zone requirements. And then other site considerations that we were looking at is how do we minimize the amount of off-haul we need to do of soils, where we need railings, whether there's room for stairs, lighting, which we are looking at installing with this project. Any kind of planting and screening to improve the comfort. There's drainage needs, and there's existing utilities that do run through this area that we are looking at as well. Just a few different iterations of images of what these look like. This is a very nice path up in Portland. I hope we can find the funding to do this type of retaining walls. We'll find out. They're very pretty. We did take this project, as I mentioned, to PROS. I think I said in January, but that was I misspoke. It was in April. The initial feedback was that they wanted some more rendering and section cuts to assist with their understanding of what the park would look like and understand grading. They wanted to discuss improving bicycle and pedestrian interactions, and we maintained those trade-offs between separating the access path and circulation paths and combining, but landed on kind of keeping to providing some separated access in parts, and in areas where we do not have the property width to do so, we will have to combine and discuss kind of bike ped interactions and how we want to deal with those. They also, and this was something that I was very happy to hear, they wanted to explore changes to the northern park layout to reduce the length of the straightaway. There was concerns that with a very, very straight path that continually runs downhill, that bicyclists might gain a lot of speed. And so they wanted to look at how do we calm, traffic calm on the shared use path. And they had some questions on path widths and expanding shared use path to include some striped pedestrian areas as one idea, and it's something we wanted to have your feedback on as well. And with that, we went back to the consultants, and this is the kind of latest concept layout where we bring the path further towards the east and then create more of a buffered area here to provide more comfort. The buffered area could be used for less formal activities, recreational activities within, as long as it's outside of any kind of clear recovery zone. And then providing, as soon as we get to a wide enough area, providing an alternative pedestrian path separated from the bikeway and creating a little bit of an S-curve, or not quite an S-curve, but some diversions in the bikeway path so that there's less risk of somebody zoning out and just hitting speed. This area potentially could be one where there's kind of more activated space. So it creates a situation where it doesn't feel like you're on a path by yourself. But that's something that we wanted to explore as we move further into conceptual design. And so this is just showing kind of greater detail on where we're making these changes. And so we focused a lot on staying away from where the freeway is at grade by pushing the path as far as possible to the east and not tying back in until we start seeing some grade separation. Again, this is to create less of that feeling of traffic rushing by close to you. And then continuing down, maintaining as large of an open field area for recreational activities. One thing that I did not mention earlier, and I wish I had mentioned also at the Park Rec open space, is the size of this. It's sometimes a little deceiving. This is a full city block length area. So even with all of these kind of major access and circulation pathways, I would anticipate that we have more walkways and pathways within this park in order to access individual recreational areas. This is kind of big picture access and circulation, not to individual activities. We generally don't see a full city block worth of park space with just two paths. And then again, just more detail about freeway at grade and making sure that we're kind of respecting the space needs and comfort of pedestrians and cyclists.
Can I ask a clarifying question? On the images you're showing.
Sarah.
Oh,
Mike.
sorry. On the images you're showing here, it's just green going, well, on this image, it's to the right, but I guess that's really to the south. But on the one that you shared as part of the materials where it has alternative 2 and alternative 3, that looks like a paved path. Is that, are you proposing a paved path there, or is this a different version?
So this is the same version. What I've done is I've overlaid a green space. This area here is really, for the purposes of kind of conversation, it serves more as a circulation within the park rather than kind of
A pathway
that's a shared use path. So trying to create some space for pros, Parks Rep, open space to be commenting on this first before we get too much into that, I think is respecting the mutual roles here.
Got it. Thank you.
Please, this is I'm going into quite a bit of detail. I do appreciate the questions. But we've reached the end. The next steps here, we absolutely want to improve visuals and project materials as part of the technical assistance grant that we have, so that we can better just show what these areas will look like. So we're working with a consultant to bring on some high-level architectural renderings so we can see how the grading interplays with the grading of the park may interplay with the grading of the bikeway. We also have some cross sections in the materials tonight, but also we do want to have some more cross sections available. The other things that we could use support on is identifying opportunities for additional community engagement. So if you're aware of any places that we can go and outreach and bring this project to residents, it's something that we definitely focus on under this technical assistance grant. And then confirm the completeness of the project scope. That's asking a lot, considering there's not much information given, but at a high level, whether this kind of speaks to some of your kind of needs from a transportation perspective through the park. There are details that we need to go into at the conforms. So at each end, not just kind of on a civil front, but on a traffic engineering and pedestrian safety, bringing people across the street at Pier Street, 555 Pier Street, which is the beginning of this proposed path, and making sure that that's safe. There's some bus stop kind of adjustments that we need to look at that we spoke about, that Justin spoke about in the last item when we were talking about the grant. Am I misspeaking there?
It was in the checklist discussion.
Thank you. We also want to begin our Caltrans encroachment process. What that means is not the actual review, but we want to get into the reports. And then begin preparations for grant applications to support future phases, which we are starting with our last item tonight. So I think summarizing what we're looking for is just your thoughts, concerns, things that will help guide us in making smart decisions as we go into a deeper dive into conceptual planning.
Thank you, Allison. It is 9:48, so we'll need to move to extend the meeting a little bit later. Any suggestions for time?
I move to extend until 10:05, and we can revisit. I want to make sure we can finish this item at least.
Or we could move for a hard stop at 10:30.
That sounds good.
Yeah. Sounds good. That means that we probably won't get through all of 4.4, so if we can make that call now so folks can be released.
I would. Are we going to be able to meet in? I feel like 40 minutes might be enough to get through 4.4.
Yeah,
Should we try?
Let's just see, because I don't think.
All right, we'll see.
I will keep that one short. I think it's a fairly straightforward question.
Yeah.
Nice, let's
we
try
need.
it.
10:30?
10:30.
Okay, 10:30
Yes.
hard stop.
Sounds good. All right, so first, any questions?
No.
All right.
Do we do public comment or no? 'Cause this is just
Questions and then public comment.
I don't
and
have- no questions.
Same dealio. All right. right, I've got some questions. So the elevation profile on the plans, is that for the straight path or is that the grade of the curved path?
That is the grade of the curved path.
Oh, okay, so even part of the curved path goes up to like a 4.5% grade?
Yes, that the switchbacks were to maintain ADA compliance.
Okay, so even within those switchbacks, it's 4.5?
Correct.
Ah. Yeah. Is the path itself sloped at all? Is there a cross slope to it?
There is a cross slope to it. Part of the kind of further refinement of this design will be exactly what that looks like and the drainage infrastructure needed to support that. But generally, these are somewhat super elevated in order to control drainage, which also helps with kind of bicycles coming down the curve.
Okay. The straight circulation path, is there a purpose for, or an intended purpose for that path? Like, is it intended to be a thoroughfare through the park? I know you touched on it a little bit, but
This one here, specifically?
the one more to the west.
This one.
Yes.
Yes, so this was a part of that discussions around whether or not there need to be one path or two paths through this park. And there's concerns about bicyclists using this as a thoroughfare, and if we are able to route this and have a single path through this way, but there are concerns with this being a small kids playground and then recreational space here, that there's kind of kids running through that area. And so in the areas that are a little bit more programmed for program space, trying to keep two separate paths was the preference that I heard. There are overlaid a few different kind of path alignments. Again, this is not meant to show what's being proposed there necessarily right this moment. This still needs conversations on a park side to understand what their future program space needs are before we can finalize. But the focus tonight on my end, my preferred focus tonight is on this portion here, the major kind of route through, where we expect to have local access through the park and more major transportation kind of elements.
Great. Thank you.
I do have one question. On slide 17, actually, the slide, that slide's good. I apologize if I gave you the wrong number. On a different slide, there were stairways indicated with red, and they're not included here. And I was just wondering if those were still part of the proposal and if you wanted feedback on those.
So stairways have not been kind of planned out, but it's something that PROS was interested in including to provide alternative access, so you're not walking through the switchbacks. There are some challenges with those. We really want to make sure that we don't orient them in a way that somebody could accidentally use them on their bike or accidentally enter them from a bike.
So on slide 18, the one that has the stairs on it.
18.
I cannot see the number on my screen, so I will go back this one.
Yes.
Okay.
The stairway that is basically in the straightaway does seem to do exactly what you were just saying.
That's schematic for a staircase as a symbol, not as a actual alignment that we would want.
I guess so that's one comment on that stairway, and you seem to be aware of the issue already. Yeah. The second one was, I don't understand why you would need the second one that's directly up to the playground area, because if there is a path that also curves and connects over, I feel like that would be redundant. And because I believe if you were to go up the first staircase, so you're coming from Cleveland, if you go up the first staircase, you'd actually have to go downhill to go up the other staircase. So I just don't understand why it's there.
It's symbolically showing some staircases. We have not gone through the level of effort to know where they are. But you're right. That one may not be needed.
Okay.
Any other questions before we go to public comment if it's here? All right.
I'm sorry, I do have one question. Allison, can you give me just a thumbnail sketch with words of what the separation between the bike and the pedestrian path is envisioned to be?
Sure. So within the area, we have more space. It's a fully separated walking path versus a kind of a bikeway, shared use path.
Separated by?
Separated by two different paths. So you have, this is a walking-only kind of pedestrian path.
Okay.
Within the park. And again, this is showing one configuration. There's that other configuration that's more of a T that we're still working out. But within this larger kind of programmable space, we wanted to provide, or we're looking at providing pedestrian-only areas so that we can, so they're not necessarily meant for bikes to be on.
So the purple line is what is that?
The purple line is showing where pedestrians can use it and bikes can use it.
And it's not separated?
This area is not separated, no. And that comes with finding space in this area for two different paths is very challenging. We're pushing this way to even meet Caltrans requirements. So there's very limited area to be able to fully.
So it's not separated and not likely to be separated? Okay,
no.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Is there any public comment online that would wish to speak on this item?
No comment.
All right, then bring it back for a discussion.
So can you clarify what feedback you want from us specifically?
So high-level thoughts, really. I appreciate the stairway comment. Anything that is kind of is going to make the project infeasible in your mind or unpalatable. Anything that you can think of that may be desired or necessary in order to make this path something that is functional, comfortable. I mentioned lighting. That is something that we want to include in this project as well. Specific ones, I think, actually have to do with Judy's question, is we have various configurations of shared use paths around the city. Are there any preferences for what those look like? We have striped pedestrian areas with where we use striping to separate pedestrians and cyclists to varying levels of success. We have places where there is no separated pedestrian area. It's just striped as a bicycle route, and pedestrians take it as well. And feedback on that would be helpful. That also goes into the width of the path. We're looking to widen the path out in areas where we have more space to provide, if not a separated walking path, parallel walking path, at least more space for everyone to be able to share and have comfort while they're using the path.
I can start. My high-level feedback is that the concerns that you have already brought up are the same things that are like on my mind. Is separate pedestrians from bikes as much as feasible. I also have concern about that long straightaway for the bicyclists of people getting at higher speeds. So thinking through how to kind of meander it or whatever to slow people down as they're going through the park. I agree, when you're thinking through the stairs, thinking about, how people naturally walk so that you're building the staircases so that we don't end up with a bunch of erosion where people are creating their own paths, but also being thoughtful about, discouraging bikes and skateboards from using them. I think those are my major things, and I I appreciate this seems like a really fun, like a challenging but challenging project because there's so many different pieces. So thank you for taking this on, and I think it's going to be a really valuable project.
I have a little bit to say, and one is just that I totally respect how difficult the Caltrans process is. So just wanted to acknowledge that you're going through that, and my apologies. I also prefer the separation of the striping with the bike area and the pedestrian area where it's possible. And this might fall into the pros jurisdiction, but I would love if you could add a DG path as well, particularly because I think a lot of people would use that path to go access the paths at Albany Bulb. And so having a DG running path next to the bike path would be great.
DG?
Sorry, DG is decomposed granite.
Oh, yes.
It's where it's like the compressed.
Like on the Greenway?
Like on the Greenway, the side.
Wonderful, yes.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion. I agree.
I will add that those DG paths are very hard to maintain, especially to stabilize it long term, when it's also ends up being part of the drainage. So we are looking at alternative materials just generally around this, stuff that is a little bit more durable. It does come with trade-offs of being closer to either asphalt or concrete on the knees. So visually it may look more like DG, but functionally it may not feel that way. But it's something as we get into detailed design, is something we would be looking at. If that's not feasible, looking at alternatives of widening the path with asphalt and creating more space for folks, maybe kind of for long-term maintenance reasons would be preferred, at least on the public works front. But that's something we definitely want to talk to you about as we get into more details, and thank you for that.
My only comment is that the site is, I'm fairly familiar with the site, and it's very windy and very steep edges. So whatever, this is more Parks and Rec stuff really, but whatever kind of wind breaks or trees or planting you could add to cut down on the noise from the freeway and the wind itself would be very useful. So in the design, if you can, a meander actually does that, I think. It adds to the, and in addition to that, I just want to comment on micro-mobility use. This would be the freeway, beside the freeway for the e-motos that can't go on the freeway. So I think we need to keep that in mind.
Mm-hmm.
So on that, in fact, just to provide a little more information too, because I didn't speak about it, but we are looking at, as part of the Caltrans requirements, but just also for comfort as well, looking at concrete barriers with fencing. But again, going back to the wind, we do want to put in vegetated screening.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Alrighty. I definitely agree that if we could meander the straight section as much as possible, that would really help with speed control. Another option is that I have found really useful when I ride is when paths flatten out every so often. I don't know the technical way to explain that, but like the path on the Richmond side of the approach to the Richmond-San Rafael Bridge does that, and it's a really good natural way to limit speed. It's super effective. So I suggest that method, and also just acknowledging that if people want to get from point A to B, they're going to take the easiest way for them. So as much as we want to make it difficult to go fast through here, that also means that we should think about providing good alternative options for those people. So I know that's not part of this scope of the project, but I think an important part of addressing that challenge is making sure that if anyone wants to get from Cleveland to Pierce just as a pass-through, that they have a safe alternative option on the streets or wherever it might be. Because they're going to go where they want to go. For width, I have found, especially on curves, a wider lane is key. The shared path that has a curve that comes to mind is in Emeryville at the one that crosses over the railroad tracks to get over to Bay Street. And granted, that is like a hairpin turn, but and obviously our turns are a lot more curved than that. But I struggle to bike on that tight turn. I even struggle to bike to make a full 90-degree turn, and I'm pretty competent. So I definitely think, and I'm looking at the map now, and I'm seeing that that path even is wider at the curve edge itself. I think if that's possible to widen it, especially at the curves, that could be good. That specific path looks to be about 14 feet there.
In the switchback area, the existing path that was constructed, I believe, is an 8-foot path, and we're looking at making it a 10-foot in the remainder, and then widening out to more of a standard path, a shared use path of, I think we go up to 12 feet by the time we get into those kind of flatter areas. But we are struggling to be able to create the switchbacks, create the space in the switchbacks without getting to the point where effectively retaining wall in a really unpleasant kind of, where you're going to be feeling like you're on the edge of a edge of a cliff.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So it's something that we're continuing to refine. So we'll keep that in mind of trying to find some space if we can.
Also on the curves, and speaking on separation of bikes and pedestrians, I absolutely agree that we should have separation for safety, especially on the curves, though. Painted lines, cyclists, especially going uphill, will probably ignore those lines and take what's most comfortable based on the slope. Especially like if I'm climbing on a curve, I'll go wide so I can take the most shallow part of that embankment. So just within all the other constraints, just considering that that's going to be the most traveled path or most desirable path for cyclists.
Yeah.
Definitely agree with the stairs. That is a challenge of that Emeryville crossing. It's kind of hard to see where those stairs are, but I also wonder if the stairs could just be its own. If there's space for it just to have a single stairway, dedicated stairway off to the side.
So I think the stairway would likely be a dogleg stairway where we come at an angle, create a landing on top, creating a landing on bottom, because we also don't want folks who are getting off the stairs to go directly into the path without having a spot, right? So more than likely, if we can fit one in at all, we will be needing to change to also direct it that way in order to have more space to build up. Otherwise, we won't get our stair heights throughout.
Also on the curves, you might already be considering this, but the visibility is especially important coming in and out of those curves.
Yeah. Speaking of visibility, I also wanted to bring up the part of the grading that we're doing in this little corner here, as we have our pedestrian path going back in to the shared use path, is trying to make that area as kind of visible as possible so pedestrians coming around the bend can see bicyclists and vice versa.
Perfect.
So visibility is definitely, I think, something we want to look at closer as we get into the renderings as well in the cross sections of these kind of critical areas. If there's any critical areas you think that more rendering could be helpful, or cross sections, and whether tonight or later if you want to email, of places you have questions about, I think that would be really helpful for identifying where we can focus on.
Okay, great. I think definitely like blind curves would be a useful spot to see what the visibility would look like.
I would add if you could add where there were any concrete barriers or other barriers would be between the right-of-way and the freeway. Any diagrams?
And for fun, I'll just add, and for whimsy, if we can add a slide on that bank.
You said
as an alternative to get down that embankment.
Without having people land in the bike.
Yeah. But wouldn't that be so sweet?
For a minute.
That would be great. The last thing I'll mention, I think, is just what I think could be helpful to see more of is especially the transition points of paths where, especially like you're mentioning, where there's the intersections, turns, especially if it's, the pink part going to the yellow part where it's a dedicated pedestrian area, just to make sure that is visually and easily demarcated. So more info on that, I think, would be really helpful. And like I mentioned before, the cross slopes would be helpful to have more information about. Yeah, what a challenging project. Thank you. And what design phase do you think we would see this again?
You'll likely see it at least one more time during conceptual, maybe more. We want to make sure we've really ironed out what we want to propose to Caltrans before we get into the detailed Caltrans processes.
Yeah, great. Yeah, thank you. All right, there was not a recommended motion for that, right? It was just provide some feedback. So with that, there's no more comments. We can carry on to item 4.4.
Give me a second while I pull this one up.
Oh, great. This is the exact thing I was talking about. Thousand Oaks. I don't know how I missed it. I was so focused on 4.1, I didn't see what else was going on.
Do you want a couple minute break, or do you want us to?
Let's just power through. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we'll continue.
Yeah.
Power through. I'm ready for this.
Thank you.
So, Thousand Oaks sidewalk reconstruction. This has been on a lot of people's lists of improvements that are needed. This is located on the north side of Memorial Park on Thousand Oaks between Pomona and Carmel. I'm going to try to go quickly. If you can stop me if I'm going too fast. We have persistent feedback from folks about the conditions. It is in high need of rehabilitation. There are changes in the prioritization with incremental improvements on either side. So you see oh no, I don't have my pointer. Here we go. We have Albany High School about a little over 20 years ago, updated their new school and built the Thousand Oaks portion of the sidewalk. We also had a prior sidewalk extension during park projects, and then we had very recently some dog park improvements that extended the sidewalk all the way to the Carmel Thousand Oaks intersection. At this point, we do want to continue to refine the path and improve it, rehabilitate it through the rest of the corridor. It does need to balance a lot of priorities, including trees. Let's see. Sorry, I probably jumped over. No, actually, I'm good. So the existing conditions, the asphalt's in very, very poor condition. As you can see, we have very large trees that were planted in various locations. Some may be volunteers. It's highly used by pedestrians to the park as well as the school, with the nearby baseball field. We did try to repair this in a prior project in 2007. That is quite a while ago. But I don't think they were particularly successful because the tree roots, though trimmed, continue to grow out into the path. That is always a challenge. We want to create a situation where we're not having to go out as often, and one that is where the sidewalk is more appropriate for the level of pedestrian traffic that we see in this area. Some information about the trees. I think this presentation was initially presented to Parks Rep Open Space, and so we focused a lot about the existing trees out there, as we are unable to make a ADA compliant sidewalk that is meeting city standards without removal of at least some of the trees. And so there is a discussion needed to figure out what kind of sidewalk is desired, and what kind of tree removal impacts we're looking at and balancing those. There is 12 feet physically available with the existing conditions between the curb and the property line. The fence line is actually set back from the property line, and so it functionally feels like larger than a 12-foot space. There are quite a few utilities in addition to trees, including streetlight poles that are double-headed poles, double-headed streetlights that are shining over the pedestrian path. And one of the challenges, like many places in Albany, is that there's no storm drain until we get to Pomona. So bulbing out and other kinds of localized curb line adjustments are challenging, where we would otherwise maybe be able to preserve trees by bulbing out and routing the pedestrian path around. One of the interesting things we discovered in starting this project is that the curb line alignments on Thousand Oaks makes a few different adjustments. So the location just near the school is a 32-foot wide street. We do get complaints about how narrow the street is there. However, 32 feet is still higher than the average north-south street, although lower than our typical collector streets. And then on the east side, when closer to where the sidewalk in question is, it's actually 36 feet, and that has to do with two different curb line changes or alignment shifts. On the north side, we're actually 2 feet narrower, and then on the south side, we're also 2 feet narrower on the western side of the intersection. And so looking at that, we wanted to look at a few different ways of, I'm sorry, I jumped ahead. Existing sidewalks, there's the existing path in the area in question is 3.5 to 4.5 foot wide. Our city standard is 5 feet. Nearby sidewalks range anywhere from 12 feet wide near Albany High School to Carmel at 5 feet wide, which is more of a standard pedestrian sidewalk. Yeah.
I'm interrupting only because I don't want to have to come back to this head later. I just want to point out that this is a 5 foot wide sidewalk right by the dog park, which is what we're talking about. And it's very hard to walk through this area with a dog when you're trying to avoid someone, or there's like someone with a stroller that you need to get around. And so I think that 5 feet, looking at this picture, I hope you can see that it feels very narrow.
Yep. And there's a picture of a 12-foot wide sidewalk. There are 4-foot tree wells, so it's effectively an 8-foot sidewalk next to the school. So what we're talking about is a 5-foot, potentially too narrow, up to maybe something more like an 8-foot that we could continue through this area. Other existing conditions is we don't have any crossings. We don't have any curb ramps and formalized crosswalks. or compliant ramps. And we really want to make sure that we address those as part of the project. Balancing, all of this has to balance the trees, the park needs, adjacent public facilities, infrastructure, and pedestrian circulation. So the three concepts that are being proposed, or discussed tonight, I should say, alternative one is to keep the existing meander through the trees. This is generally not a recommended practice. It's not as comfortable for folks who have in wheelchairs or other mobility devices to have to adjust their path of travel, especially on a kind of more of a sidewalk configuration versus a park where meanders are more common. The alternative number 2 is a curbside sidewalk. So this would be functionally similar to the 2 connecting sidewalks on Carmel and at Albany High School. And again, the path width is something that needs some finalizing because that changes the tree removals and kind of other considerations for how we do our design. And the third, or the alternative 2A, we're calling it this because it still keeps the sidewalk next to the curb, but looking at pushing the curb line out and taking advantage of the street being 2 feet wider in that that north area of Memorial Park. This would allow us to provide and preserve a little bit more open space for larger trees. This is one of the remaining areas where we can really plant large trees. There are existing large trees that are reaching end of life, and so we want to interplant with other large canopied trees.
Clarification, is the roadway 4 foot wider, not 2 foot?
Yes, but it's only 2 foot wider if we want to keep the center line consistent.
Oh, okay.
Thanks. Yep. Covered most of this. I'm sorry. I am going to try to skip through some of this unless we have major questions. Let's see. So kind of going back to kind of pros comments, because they are also involved in this conversation with tree removals, but also the park access needs. They have a preference for maintaining a large amount of space, and they supported moving the project forward to ask for that 2 foot curb line adjustment in the Pomona to Carmel length of the street, and that's something that we come to Transportation Commission to discuss. They have interest in addressing above ground utilities, which we'll take care of, and interest in further discussions on final path width. So I think that speaks to the question earlier, or the comment earlier about the Carmel sidewalk being too narrow. What we show in our 2 configurations is a curbside sidewalk at a very, very minimum 5 foot width. And you'll in the attachments, it showed the sidewalk kind of diverting around some of the street lights. But that's really not a very comfortable path. Having this wider still maintains a fairly large planter area behind the sidewalk. And so feedback on maybe a sidewalk width or sidewalk clearance is appreciated. We are still early enough in design that we can accommodate some of those. It just comes with potentially increasing the amount of tree impacts, and we'll have to weigh that and balance that with park rec open space conversations. So going back to, those are the 2 things: feedback on sidewalk widths, feedbacks on proposed curb line realignment and reduced roadway width, and see if there's any comments here or recommendations.
First things first, any questions before we take to public comment?
No questions.
All right, any commenters online? All right, 6 people just hanging on with us. Thank you. All right, discussion.
I'll jump in on this. I go to the dog park regularly, and I do not walk on this side of the street because I've tripped, and it's hard. So I fully support all these projects. or all this work. I do not feel that 5 foot is wide enough, particularly next to a park. I would recommend at least a minimum of 6, which is like the ADA preference, so that you have a wider width. I would prefer 8, but I would say 6 should be considered a minimum.
An 8-foot clear, consistent with, there's places, yeah.
Yeah, 8 might not, yes. No, not 8 foot clear, but like I say, minimum of 6, widen it if you can, recognizing that there are locations nearer there that it's already 5, probably 6 is adequate. I just generally prefer wider sidewalks. And I'm a little confused how it can be this relatively the same cost when you're moving the curb line, but I will trust you on that, and if they are the same, then I would prefer 2A.
Yeah, I looked at all of these, and I don't need to discuss it at great length, but I also came up with 2A as my preferred choice, so.
I'm in agreement with 2A, and yeah, trying to maintain trees as much as possible with potential sections where it narrows slightly to accommodate a tree is, I'm comfortable, like that sounds good, but keeping as wide as possible in general.
Yeah, I would agree.
Clarifying my comment, preference for 6 if you have to narrow it to 5 to save a tree. That would be fine.
Save the tree.
We'll be back with designs, and we'll be talking to pros as well. So there'll be some back and forth on the final widths here, but getting your feedback that wider is preferred is what we're looking for. Thank you.
I did have one more thought, and we have at least a couple minutes left, but the trees that are growing there now are right up against that fence, and that fence is probably 30 feet tall. So I'm just, maybe back with Parks and Recs and open space, what kind of trees are going to be able to replace the ones that are at end of life now? Because they may be tall, skinny ones as opposed to big, flowy ones. And it's very nice with the trees that are there now, and I'd like to have that continue.
Mm-hmm.
Great, thank you.
Thank you for bearing with me through the last 2 items.
Thank you, Allison. Right. With that, final announcements. Are there any announcements from staff or commissioners?
No announcements tonight.
I will not be at next month's meeting. I'm going to be out of town, so I just wanted to let you know.
And I'll be missing the July meeting, just a heads up.
And I am uncertain if I can attend the July meeting.
We have a separate thing that's future items, right? Or is this when you bring up future
No,
items?
no, now's a good time.
Okay. I just wanted us, Justin, to go back to those comments that were made at the very beginning. So the person who talked about the traffic calming study for Peralta, if, I don't know if your plan is, if you can follow up with them, or if that's something you would want to make an agenda item that you present. And then similarly, if, like an action plan to address some of those concerns with the person regarding the curb cut widths and the planting of, the native trees, plants. And I think that curb cuts and the traffic light are probably set where they are, but just acknowledging that.
Staff will follow up.
Yeah, great. Thanks. That's it.
Great, thank you. Thank you for your first meeting.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Thank you.
And that's it. Next meeting will be June 25th, pending confirmation of having a quorum.
Yeah.
All right, thanks for the late night.
Thanks all.
Yep, take care.